the 14th, the year 2024. And the National Government Administration Laws Amendment Bill is one that seeks to make various amendments to the Assumption of the Office of President Act 2012, the National Security Council Act 2012, the Office of the Attorney General Act 2012, and the National Government Coordination Act 2012. These are statutes that this particular bill has proposed some amendments to. The Assumption of Office of the President Act with regards to this bill is that it seeks to amend with the objective of strengthening the composition of the Assumption of the Office of the President Committee by incorporating the Secretary to the National Security Council and the Principal Secretary responsible for defense as additional members of the committee. The bill also seeks to enhance the representation of the President-elect in the committee by increasing the number of representatives of the President-elect from 3 to 6. Amendments that have been proposed to the statutes on the National Security Council Act is that this will provide for the appointment of the National Security Advisor to designate the National Security Advisor as the Secretary to the National Security Council, to prescribe the functions of the National Security Advisor, also to establish the National Security Council Committee, and to prescribe the functions of the National Security Committee. Amendments to the Office of the Attorney General Act 2012 seeks to remove the Attorney General as the custodian of the public seal. And the proposals to the the amendments to the National Government Coordination Act 2013 seeks to provide for the establishment and functions of the head of the public service and offices of Chief Administrative Secretary. So this is a bill whose debate already kicked off on the floor of the House. Remember, it is at its second reading stage, so debate is on. And it will be a resumption of a similar debate that was interrupted on the Thursday of March, that is the 14th, the year 2024. So members who have not been able to give their opinion on these particular amendments to these statutes will this afternoon also have that time to participate and give or share their views with regards to the proposed amendments. The Care and Protection of Child Parents Bill, this is a bill that is originating from the Senate and is co-sponsored by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Social Protection. This is Honorable Alice Nganga, who's also the member for Thika Town. It is a bill that will be read for the first time on the floor of the National Assembly. This is a bill that is originating from the Senate. But the purpose of this bill is that it seeks to provide a framework for the care and protection of child parents within the counties, also to provide a framework through which an expectant girl child or a child parent may actualize their right to basic education and at the same time ensure the care of their children are catered for. This is a bill that will this afternoon undergo or go through the first reading, a bill originating from the Senate but is co-sponsored by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Social Protection. This is Honorable Alice Nganga. On the business for this afternoon sitting, the bill on the Houses of Parliament bicameral relations, a bill that is originating from the National Assembly, is at its second reading stage. This is a bill that is sponsored by the INAPCOI Honorable Member Samuel Chepkonga. Is also part of the business that members will be considering this afternoon. This particular bill seeks to give effect to Articles 109, 110, 113, 114, and 118 of the Constitution, and it seeks to foster the bicameral relations by prescribing procedures for ensuring seamless consideration of the legislative business of both houses. Remember, by the term bicameral, it means it's a bill that relates to both houses of Parliament. This is the National Assembly and the Senate. This is a bill that is originating from the National Assembly and seeks to foster the bicameral relations by prescribing procedures for ensuring seamless consideration of the legislative business of both houses. First reading on this bill was already done on the floor, and this afternoon it's lined up for second reading. This particular bill outlines matters relating to publication and enacting formula for bills and acts of Parliament, so as to standardize the practice between the houses. These matters were previously expressly provided for in the Constitution before the 2010. Remember, Parliament is a house of law, and it's law that is done by both houses. So this one will be relating to the publication and enacting formula for bills and acts of Parliament, so as to standardize the practice between the houses. But as you can see at the entrance is that the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula, is walking into the chambers. The mess is ahead, and he will be the one presiding over this afternoon sitting. Allow me to hand you over to this live broadcast that is brought to you by Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with KBC. Good afternoon.
Waheshimiwa, tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umeteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, tukusihi utazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao wameridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Twakuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote tutakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako siendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Honorable members, we have quorum to transact business. I have no papers here. They're there. Walikuwa wamefungia ndani.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Nandi Hills. Honorable Bernard Kituru.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I, the undersigned, on behalf of the Kapkagaron community in Nandi Hills Sub-County, draw the attention of the House to to the following: that Kapkagaron Farm, LR number 5423/2 and LR number 6053, located in Nandi County, was part of a parcels of land expropriated by the white colonial settlers in the early 1940s. That following negotiations with the community and the local leadership, Kakuzi Limited, who were the last owners of the farms, were willingly gave back parts of blocks of the land to the community for establishment of public institutions and settlement of squatters. That among the blocks of land donated by Kakuzi Limited to the community was Septon, title number 5423/2, measuring 433.02 hectares. In particular, 242 acres, that is 96.44 hectares, was to be used for the establishment of Kapkagaron Technical, in brackets secondary school, and block Septon Syndicate of title number 6053, measuring 440 acres, earmarked for settlement of squatters. That between April to August 1985, Haim and Simalin, those who are licensed surveyors, began the initial discussion on how the matter of expunging the land title number 5423/2 from the bigger block. On the 26th January 1993, Kaplan and Stratton Law Firm did a letter that enclosed the schedule of shareholders of both Sireti Company Limited and Kakuzi Limited, as the transfer was first to move both lands, that is LR 5423/2 and LR 6053, from Sireti Company Limited to the parent holding company, that is Kakuzi Limited, then from the latter to the squatters' legally registered farm. That on the 24th March 1993, Kakuzi Limited did a letter to the community through the chairman of Kapkagaron Farmers Cooperative Society Limited, in response to a letter the community had done on 5th March 1993, and confirming that the company was still committed to donating LR number 6053 in addition to LR number 5423/2 to the community for construction of the said technical secondary school. That on 2nd June 1993, Mr. P.N. Mogire, on behalf of the Commission of Lands, gave a final subdivisional approval of LR number 5423/2, that is the 433.02 hectares, and excised 96.88 hectares, placing the new title number of the block for the community as LR number 5423/4. That on 2nd July 1993, a Gazette legal notice number 173 was published, where Sireti Company Limited transferred LR number 5423/2, that is 1,070 acres, and LR number 6053 of 440 acres, among many other titles. That on the 24th June 1994, block LR number 5423/2 was transferred from Sireti Company to Kakuzi Limited. And the same day, the same parcel of land was allegedly transferred illegally from Kakuzi Limited to a private developer by the name Tindiret Development Trust Company. That the said Tindiret Development Trust Company Limited is a non-existent company as per the response letter from the Registrar of Companies dated 6th August 2015, which then makes the transfer of the community land to a phantom company null and void. That Kakuzi Limited is yet to declare the status of LR number 6053, which they had expressly intended as a company to unequivocally transfer to the community via a letter dated 24th March 1993. That the matter presented in this petition is not pending before any court of law or any constitutional or legal body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Public Petitions Committee, 1, engages the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, and other relevant authorities with a view to investigating into the alleged irregular and illegal acquisition of Kapkagaron Farm, LR number 5423/2 and LR number 6053 by Tindred Development Trust Company. Secondly, proposes that the matter of resettlement of squatters who have occupied the Kapkagaron Farm, LR number 5423/2 and LR number 6053 land for the last 50 years be given priority during settlement of residents in the area. Thirdly, is recommends investigation into the conduct of officers responsible for settlement of the squatters for failing to adhere to land laws in the course of their duties while settling residents, and that appropriate action, disciplinary action, be taken. And lastly, makes any recommendations or actions it deems fit in addressing the plight of the petitioners. And your petitioners will ever pray. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kituru. Ordinarily, those who are interested can make comments, and if there's none, the petition is Mbui on the petition. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support that petition. I think, Mr. Speaker, there are too many issues on issues of land ownership that have historically been an issue. And I think one of the problems we are facing is that previously, I think the Commissioner of Lands used to have the power to just give out any public land however he wanted. But Kenyans in 2010, by promulgating the new constitution, they came up with the National Lands Commission. And Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate 14 years after the National Lands Commission was, was initiated, or the idea was conceptualized, we still have so many issues. A lot of the petitions that come to this house, Mr. Speaker, are to do with issues to do with land. So I don't know what we are going to do as a house to make sure that this thing of land is sorted out. And that's why you can see, Mr. Speaker, that just recently, a whole region of Mavoko constituency had houses, over 10,000 houses, that were put up affordably by individuals, brought down. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to figure out how we can sort out this. Even the affordable housing program is facing challenges to do with land. So I don't know exactly what we'll do, but we need to figure out a solution for the land problem of this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, MP for cases.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support that there is actual need to actualize the Constitution of Kenya 2010 as matters public land and community land. Most of the challenges that communities that are staying around large land is occupied by multinationals, which then at that time were given leases and they have lapsed. Up to then, silence has been experienced on what happens after there. Only that you see some change of activities, changes of names in terms of ownership or companies that are running those multinational, which depicts there are people somewhere silently, when they know that certain lease has come to an end, they silently exercise a process of changing the ownership and the lease period, minus including the community. And I dare say, Mr. Speaker, I think a matter need now to be raised from this honorable house, that those multinational lands need now to be affected and even call upon resurveying of the same. Because we all understand that anything to do with public land comes to the interest of the natives and the community. Because big questions will arise of the natives who are pushed away. Where is their interest? The 10% provided by law, where is it? Right now, there are no spaces for public utility, no hospitals, no schools to build, yet those particular leases have lapsed. And as we know, when the lease lapses, the rights of that particular property reverts back to the original owner. And the original owner, in this case, are the community that were pushed away by the colonial farmers, then who end up being the multinational ownership of those particular lands. So I stand to say, it is time now that as Republic of Kenya, we need to take action on this. We have to be serious, we have to be candid, and implement the Constitution to the letter. Thank you so much.
Sorry, Minority, I'll come to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this petition by Honorable Kitur. Mr. Speaker, land is a very emotive issue, and if somebody's land has been taken away, it's very, very bad. Mr. Speaker, we've got some lands adjudication officers who changed the records in the books, and it's written in pencil. Next time you go and check, it is rubbed and put another name, and those faceless people is what we need to look at, Mr. Speaker, and the minister in charge, together with the PS, need to get to the bottom of those books which are written in pencil and can be rubbed at any time. So I support, Mr. Speaker.
Minority Leader.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, just to speak briefly on this petition, which I find very, very important. The Honorable Member must be commended for being bold and preparing this petition. Honorable Speaker, the issue we have which needs to be addressed, and I will be addressing you on this much later, is that under the Constitution, the National Land Commission was established at Article 67 with wide-ranging powers and functions. One of those functions was actually to initiate investigations on its own initiative or on a complaint into present or historical land injustices and recommend appropriate redress. I know the initial commission didn't do much. The commission under one Swazuri, it actually failed Kenyans. But I'm happy the present commission has tried to address some of these issues, even though it still needs to be given time. Honorable Speaker, we must be very, very careful, even as I call upon the relevant committee to expedite the processing of that petition. It has to be expedited. But we must be very careful as a House not to fall into a trap of basically clawing back on the gains we have made as a country over the years, especially on the matters of land reforms. Honorable Speaker, I will be addressing you on this matter later, and this is especially on the matter of attempting to reduce the powers, to usurp the powers of the Commission, to have the powers of the Commission usurped by the Cabinet Secretary. That's an issue that this House must deal with frontally, and I'll be addressing you on that issue extensively later, Honorable Speaker. We can't allow, as a House, to have any other authority or office or person usurp the powers that have been given by the Constitution to the National Land Commission, especially the power to determine the value of land and to actually act on behalf of the public of Kenya, insofar as land management is concerned. Honorable Speaker, I lend my support to that petition. Thank you.
Member for Mosop.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to support this petition from the Member of Parliament of Nandi, Kitur. Mr. Speaker, land is a very sensitive issue that directly, truly affects the socioeconomic stability of any society. And the issue of land in Nandi dates back to the time of the colonial times. And this issue of Kapkagaron land is one of the many land injustices that we've really experienced in Nandi. Of the 400 claims that came forward to NLC, Mr. Speaker, 10% came from Nandi. We have a lot of people who were displaced, a lot of residents who were truly displaced when the colonialists came in, so that they used the land to cultivate, to grow things like tea, sugarcane, and many other things. So the original people who lived in those lands were displaced. And some of these displacement did not come even during the colonial times. Some of them just happened from the year maybe in the 70s, 80s, up to the late 2000s when this really happened. So, Mr. Speaker, it is a very, very serious matter, and I really applaud Member of Parliament Kitur for bringing this matter so that we can really discuss in full, and also to encourage NLC to look into it so that those people who are displaced can actually be given back their land. The multinationals need to really sit down and figure a way to compensate the original people who own the land. So, Mr. Speaker, I truly stand to support this petition by the member. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Maungu, member for Luanda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the petition by my good friend and brother because, as we all know, land is a factor of production, Mr. Speaker. And we have had a lot of land injustices in this country because of leases that expire. And, Mr. Speaker, we've witnessed situations whereby people have been chased, sometimes the property demolished because of purported expired leases, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, the idea by my brother to have this petition before the petition committee, Mr. Speaker, is a great relief. And I hope that and pray that the petition committee, Mr. Speaker, will be able to work on it fast, Mr. Speaker. However, Mr. Speaker, as you may have known, so many petitions have been given to the petitions committee that have not been processed. My fear will be that such a great petition will again delay before the same committee. So my prayer is that as important as the petition may be, the petition committee may be forced to work harder and look into the issue of land, because land is a very motive factor, and we all know that land is a factor of production. And therefore, delaying on this petition, Mr. Speaker, will be delaying on justice of many other people who may be affected by the same. I stand to support. Thank you.
Oundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I must take this opportunity to sincerely thank the petitioner for bringing up into this matter the issue of land, historical land injustice to the fore of national debate and parliamentary debate. Honorable Speaker, under Article 67 of the Constitution of Kenya, the National Land Commission is mandated to initiate investigation on its own initiative or on complaint into present and historical land injustice and recommend appropriate redress. I also want to join my colleague from Luanda that probably, as much as this brings the matter to the purview of House, Parliament, and probably brings it to the national debate, probably the best and easiest place to have sent this petition would have been the National Land Commission. They have the wherewithal, they have got the technology, they have the technical know-how to probably expeditiously address this matter. Whichever way we look at it, Honorable Speaker, whichever recommendation the House makes will have to be referred back to the National Land Commission to address this matter. And then, Honorable Speaker, this brings into question the issue of land management system in this country. The issue of land information management system in this country. This process began with the Njonjo Commission report. This process continued in the Ndungu report. This process was started a few years ago in the Ministry of Lands to try and digitize land information management system to an extent that, Honorable Speaker, nobody will ever claim land does not belong to themselves and proceed to register in their name. Again, Honorable Speaker, the provision of the Land Registration Act is explicitly clear on the process to be followed. I sincerely believe, as much as Parliament is obligated to listen to any petitions, if he had consulted me, I would have advised him the easier and expeditious way of handling the matter. But for the fact that he has brought it to public debate, it's a good petition, and we pray and hope that the Public Petition Committee will do justice so that within the shortest time possible, the matter is determined and referred to the relevant constitutional commission to resolve the matter. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Melly.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the petitioner, Honorable Member for Nandi Hills. And Honorable Speaker, I want to say that this petition is a tip of the iceberg on the land issues in this country. Land issues in this country dates back to the colonial period, where the European settlers displaced hundreds of thousands of Kenyans from the White Highlands. In our county, Nandi County was one of the seriously affected areas. Kericho, most parts that we have in this country. But to delve into the issue that we have before this committee, which Honorable Member has just brought in, Mr. Speaker, is to really look at what are the issues which are bedeviling Kenyans and affecting Kenyans every other time that a petition is raised. If you look at the issue of Ngerek or the Chepkumia petition that was brought before this House, where the government took land and they took it and made it a forest. Up to today, the people have not been compensated. We have former island areas, which was European settled areas in Chemelil, in many parts, which is within Nandi County. Right now, the locals are settling there without title deeds. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that this petition needs to be looked at expeditiously, need to be actually handled so that the issues affecting the landless people, which are very common in Nandi, more so in Nandi Hills, in Tinderet, and in other parts of the country. I remember one time there was a petition from the coast region. There has been petitions from many of other counties. Honorable Speaker, I want you to direct that the petitions committee need to look into this and expeditiously bring the report to the House, and the House has to have a resolution on how to handle land issues facing Kenyans across the country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Cynthia Muge.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to add my voice and actually support this petition that has been brought to this Honorable House by the Honorable Member, Bernard Kitur, Member for Parliament, Nandi Hills. Honorable Speaker, this issue and the lands issue in Nandi County is a very emotional, emotive, and thorny issue, Honorable Speaker. And as it has been put by other members, Honorable Speaker, this is the tip of the iceberg. This particular land that we're speaking about, Honorable Speaker, has a whole community living there with zero facilities. They have zero schools, they have zero health facilities, and nothing that any human being in a settlement, Honorable Speaker, need. And Honorable Speaker, as you have seen the way it has been put in the petition under bullet number 8, that in 1994, Honorable Speaker, the land was transferred from one entity to another and to another in one day, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, me and you, being residents and Kenyans, know the bureaucracy that surrounds land. Honorable Speaker, the fact that the land was transferred from one entity to the other in one day is fishy, Honorable Speaker, enough, and is actually a red flag. So, Honorable Speaker, we also want to speak to the matters that have been here, and we want to ask that, Honorable Speaker, you accord the seriousness, Honorable Speaker, that this matter deserves, so that it can be able to get a committee to be able to look into these issues, Honorable Speaker, so that we can once and for all, in a small way, Honorable Speaker, start sorting out the injustices, Honorable Speaker, that were meted on our people, especially on the issues of land, Honorable Speaker. So that, Honorable Speaker, we avoid lands that are coming back to the legitimate people being given to pseudo companies, Honorable Speaker, that are calling themselves the trustees of the people, whereas, Honorable Speaker, they are fraudsters and they are not actually, they do not have any interest of the people, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, as a resident of Nandi County, as a representative of those people, Honorable Speaker, who have suffered, Honorable Speaker, for a very long time, I support this petition, and I pray, Honorable Speaker, just like the petitioner has prayed, that this House, Honorable Speaker, which has resources and has the capacity, should be able to help these people resolve this issue, Honorable Speaker, and the people of Nandi can be able to get back their lands so they can be able to go forward development-wise. I appreciate the opportunity to add my voice, Honorable Speaker.
I want us to end here. Professor Bartol, then Farah, you'll close. Oh, Milemba, you. Wow. Okay, Professor, take 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me also the chance to add my voice on this petition. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Kitur from Nandi Hills. Madam Speaker, land issues in Kenya is a time bomb. And specifically, it would seem that the Land Commission of Kenya is a toothless institution because it seems it's not able to deal with the land issues in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure it's not just in Nandi Hills, but this is a problem which is in every part of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I want to bring a case of Moiben constituency where we have several disputes. For instance, we have one referred to as Kamiasore settlement scheme. We have another one referred to as ground land. Mr. Speaker, this is a situation where during planting season, we have different farmers plowing the land. We have different farmers planting. And at the final end, we have a different group of people harvesting. So we have disputes throughout the year. So how I wish this matter would be taken up seriously and the committee in charge to bring a report, and I think it will go a long way in setting a record for all the other issues in all the parts of Kenya. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Farah, you'll close. Let me finish with these two members first. Milemba, then Raso, then I'll come to you, Farah. 2 minutes, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and let me support this petition. Honorable Speaker, we have what we call the predisposition in legal language. The predisposition has also been highlighted by Anton Toynbee in his theory of land ownership. That is the first occupancy theory. And therefore, land ownership in Kenya is based on the first occupancy theory, that those who walked first in the land occupied, measured it, and actually bounded it to become theirs. With the coming of Europeans, and that reminds me of the Maasai agreements of 1904 and 1911, and other agreements that were done in Central and Rift Valley, especially Nandi areas, land moved to Europeans through companies. The leases of 99 years and 100 years were thought to be unmanageable and they would never end. Honorable Speaker, they have ended. And this Parliament must now stand to the Land Commission to actually bring back this land to the original owners, who were the first occupiers of the land. It's never a time bomb because we have to deal with it now. I will be calling upon the committee concerned, the petition committee, to handle this matter as a precedent to start handing over the land to the original owners. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Dida. Give the microphone to Honorable Raso. There you are.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support this petition. By the time a member stands on the floor of this House to present a petition, it means something is not working or an institution is sleeping on the job. Honorable Speaker, our Constitution is very clear. Land is either private, public, or communal. Land does not exist in perpetuity. It must belong somewhere. It is only in Kenya that we find people as squatters all their lifetime. How can Kenyans live as squatters in all parts of this country without legislators or the government of the day taking notice? I think through such petition, this House has been provided the right opportunity to address itself. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the right to property ownership, yourself as a lawyer of repute, you must have presented issues in court of individuals having issues of land. I think at the bottom of it is to accept that land belongs somewhere. It just does not exist in perpetuity. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Farah.
Mr. Speaker, land is a very emotive issue in this country. Mr. Speaker, we fought for our independence because of the dispossession of Kenyans from their rightful ancestral lands. It's a pity. We say in my language, if you steal a camel and the camel gives birth to a calf, that calf is still a stolen property. You could not say because I only stole one camel and the camel gave birth to a calf, the calf does not become yours. It still belongs to the original owner of the camel. This land was stolen from original Africans, Kenyans in here by the colonialists. And when they were stealing it, for those of you who have studied law, they called it by the will of the crown. And a native did not have a right to land. Today, 63 years after independence, I don't know where the Talai clan is. The clan of Ole Koitalel, Ole Samoi. I don't know where they are. But they don't have land and they don't have a livelihood and they are poor and they're staying somewhere as squatters. And the ancestors of those people, whether they converted that into big companies of tea farms and coffee farms or whatever it is, are the ones enjoying this. Mr. Speaker, we must have a land policy that addresses the historical injustices of the expropriation of the Africans' land. Where does the Dedan Kimathi family live today? How many acres of land do they have? How many acres of land does that family have today? Hardly anything. The freedom fighters, the Mau Mau fighters, where are they? And we claim that we are an independent country here with a national assembly of our own and we make our own laws. You cannot correct, you can't pretend to be serving Kenyans when you cannot correct the historical injustices. This petition is a good one. And if I am asked, I will say, give back the land to the original owners. I don't care whether you're called Kakuzi or you're called Sassini or you call yourself anything. The land belongs to those Nandis of those days. They need their land back. It belongs to those Kikuyus of those days. They need their land back. You try to transfer the problem to Lamu now by taking the people from Central Province to go and stay in Lamu, take over the land of other people there. And as a consequence of that, we have insecurity there. We have insecurity there. Because big wigs in our political structure here took over those lands, then in turn everybody is looking for a weaker person to take over from. Mr. Speaker, if we don't address this thing, it's going to become a very big issue in this country. There is going to be a serious civil war in this country if we do not address the issue of the coastal land. The coastal lands, which have been taken over by other people. You think the sons and the grandsons of those people are going to sit back and just watch what was done to their great-grandfathers and grandfathers, what was done to Koitalelo Ole Samoi?
Your time is up.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I support this petition.
Clerk, when I say 2 minutes, I mean 2 minutes. You favored Honorable Farah with 5 minutes, unlawfully. But thank you for your contribution. Honorable members, this petition stands committed to the Committee on Public Petitions and to report back in the stipulated time and our standing orders. And members who bring petitions, you have a duty to follow up the progress of your petitions with this committee because I've even given them time to work out of the sitting schedules to reduce the backlog. Kandia, I see you here. You are a member of the Petitions Committee. Your committee must continuously pull up. Yeah? Yes, I gave you authority to sit out of the normal times and continue doing so. After recess, I want to see some results from your committee. You've got, yes. Yes. Okay. Honorable members, allow us to go back to order number 2. allow us to go back to order number 2 for two short communications. Communication number 1. Honorable members, I wish to introduce to you a delegation from the County Assembly of Makueni who are seated in the Speaker's Gallery. The delegation comprises 6 members of the County Assembly led by their Speaker, the Honorable Douglas Mbilu. They are accompanied by 5 members of staff led by the Deputy Clerk of the County Assembly. The delegation is in the National Assembly to learn on the scheduling of business in the Assembly and other aspects on the conduct of the business of the Assembly. Honorable members, on my own behalf and on that of the National Assembly, I welcome the delegation to Parliament and wish them fruitful deliberations. And as a matter of addition, this afternoon, the House Business Committee welcomed the Speaker and his team into our meeting, and we had good exchanges. The second communication, members, is to invite members who profess the Islamic faith, members who profess the Islamic faith, to an iftar by the Speaker. As you are aware, our brothers and sisters of the Islamic faith are observing the holy month of Ramadan, which commenced last week. The Right Honorable Speaker of the Senate and I hereby extend an invitation to all members of the Islamic faith in both houses of Parliament for an iftar dinner to be held on Thursday, 21st March 2024 at Serena Hotel in Nairobi from 6 p.m. We have also invited the leadership of the House to the dinner. Honorable members, I take this opportunity to wish the Muslim community Ramadan Mubarak. I thank you. Order. Irene Mayaka, you are not invited. Honorable members, allow me to acknowledge in the speakers and public galleries the following schools or institutions: Kenyatta High School, Othaya, Nyeri; Terige Boys School from Mgwen, Nandi; Learning and Discovery Africa, I don't know if that's a school or a college, from Westlands, Nairobi; Chania Girls High School from Thika Town, Kiambu; Kenyatta University, Kasarani, Nairobi. On my behalf and on behalf of the whole House, we welcome them to the House of Parliament. Thank you. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I lay these papers, I would also like to take this opportunity to send a message of condolence to students of my alma mater, Kenyatta University, for the loss of their colleagues. And I wish them quick recovery, those that are sick and injured, and those that the Lord took, I wish them, the Lord rest them in eternal peace. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay papers today on the table of the House today, Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. 1, the following statutory instruments with accompanying regulatory impact statements and report on stakeholders' consultations from the Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. A, legal notice number 49 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development Beach Management Units, Regulations 2024 and the explanatory memorandum. B, legal notice number 50 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development Inland Fisheries Regulations 2024 and explanatory memorandum. C, legal notice number 51 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development Recreational Fisheries Regulations 2024 and the explanatory memorandum. D, legal notice number 52 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development Fish Levy Trust Fund Order 2024 and the explanatory memorandum. E, legal notice number 53 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development, Marine Fisheries Regulations 2024 and explanatory memorandum. F, legal notice number 54 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development General Regulations 2024 and explanatory memorandum. G, legal notice number 55 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management and Development Safety and Quality Regulations 2024 and explanatory memorandum. And H, legal notice number 56 of 2024 relating to the Fisheries Management Development Aquaculture Regulations 2024 and explanatory memorandum. 2, legal notice number 51 of 2024 relating to the Public Finance Management Kenya Millennium Development Fund Regulations 2024 from the National Treasury. And lastly, annual status reports on water, sanitation and irrigation 2023 from the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee. Nandi Nyoro. Any member of Chair Budget? Who is the Vice Chair? Mary Emase. Are you the Vice Chair Budget? Don't you have a report to table?
Yes.
You have it?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 19th March 2024. The report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on its consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2024. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
We have none. Next. Member for Githunguri, that's Wamshomba. Didn't I see Honorable Wamchomba in the House? Owen Baya, where is your member?
I thought I also saw Mushomba in the House a few minutes ago. So
I saw her walk in greeting everybody.
I think her paraphernalia is here, but she said she has evaporated.
Okay, let's go to the next. We'll come back to that when she comes.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honorable Ali Wario, MP Garsen. Give the Honorable Wario the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request for a statement regarding the disappearance of Mr. John Kopesha Abdirova, who is an employee at TARDA. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 44.2c, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security regarding the disappearance of Mr. John Kopesha Abdirova of ID number 9769707 from Garseni constituency. Honorable Speaker, On Thursday, 8th February 2024, Mr. John Kopesha Abdirova of ID number 9769707 disappeared under mysterious circumstance after he was last seen having dinner in Gamba Tana Resort Guest House at around 10 p.m. The disappearance, which was reported at Gamba Police Station under OB number 06/12/2024, has caused distress to his family on his whereabouts and safety. Further, the incident raises serious concern regarding the protection of fundamental rights of individuals pursuant to Article 29 of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security on the following. 1. Could the chairperson provide a report on the whereabouts of Mr. John Kopesha Abdirova and the status of investigation by the police on his disappearance as reported under the OB number 06/12/2024. Number 2, what measures has the government taken to ensure that the said person is expeditiously traced and reunited with his family? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Wario. Tongoyo, where is it? Yes, Dida Raso, can you bring a statement in 2 weeks?
Obliged, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next, Geoffrey Ruku, member from Mbeere North.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to request for statement regarding tax incentives claimed by special economic zones, developers, operators, and enterprises. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44.2c, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning regarding the tax incentives claimed by special economic zone developers, operators, and enterprises by way of waiver and exemptions. Honorable Speaker, the Special Economic Zone Act of 2015 was enacted to inter alia provide a framework for establishment of special economic zones, the promotion and facilitation of global and local investors, and the development and management of enabling environment for trade and investment. Since the enactment of the Act, over 35 special economic zones have been gazetted. Despite the large number of gazetted zones and massive tax incentives that they claim annually, the number of special economic zones investors in the country seem to be incommensurate, and the special economic zones are categorized with low productivity, which has made their impact indemonstrable. Further, the Special Economic Zones Authority website shows that only 3 of the gazetted special economic zones are public, while the rest are private. Honorable Speaker, the foregoing state of the affairs could be the pointers to a likelihood of a compromised integrity of special economic zones. This could particularly be exploited by unscrupulous land dealers purportedly selling the land within the special economic zones without paying taxes and duties to all unsuspecting Kenyans and investors into economic exploitation without any economic benefits. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on the following. 1. Could the chairman provide us a status report on the economic feasibility of each of the special economic zone gazetted since 2015, including the identities of promoters and beneficial owners? 2. Could the chairperson provide a status report on the amount of land leased out or sold in each special economic zone, the identities of the purchasers or leasers, and whether the said purchasers or leasers have invested in the respective special economic zones? 3. What is the number and the type of jobs created for Kenyans by each of the zones, including the quantum of pay-as-you-earn taxes paid for each year? 4. What quantum of exemptions and waivers have been extended to each economic zone developer, operator, and enterprise in respect of corporation tax, withholding taxes, value-added taxes, including VAT on imports and import duties for each year since 2015? 5. What measures has the National Treasury, the Kenya Revenue Authority, and the Special Economic Zone Authority put in place to forestall abuse of special economic scheme, including the reporting mechanisms? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Ruku. Chair of Finance, Kimani.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I'd like to thank Honorable Roko for being seized of this matter. Honorable Speaker, the Finance Act of 2023, we created several incentives to SEZs and EPZs in this country. However, since that enactment, Honorable Speaker, we've seen a lot of gazettement of very new and many those SEZ and EPZs. Some of them are even private people's properties. Honorable Speaker, the questions being sought by Honorable Ruko, we would like to handle this matter comprehensively. And so my request would be, even if you would approve, that instead of submitting just a statement to this House, Honorable Speaker, that we make it an inquiry, so that we make sure that we sort out these loopholes that these unscrupulous businesses are using in our SEZs and EPZs, denying us the required revenues, Honorable Speaker, and making it uncompetitive to other businesses and manufacturers that do not necessarily operate within these SEZ and EPZs, much of which, as I've said, have been irregularized, Honorable Speaker. So our request as a committee is that if we are to answer the 5 questions sought by the Honorable Roko comprehensively, then we'd like to make an inquiry, we'd like to make it an inquiry, visit those SEZs, visit those EPZs, see the actual impact on the losses made in terms of our revenues, both pay, VAT, excess, and all those other taxes, Honorable Speaker, and even the impact of that on export and the competitiveness of the products made in these EPZs and SEZs vis-a-vis those that are made by other manufacturers and businesses that don't necessarily operate in this privileged space, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. I will exercise my discretion under Standing Order 218 and accede to your request. You may proceed under 218-2, and the committee can proceed as you have proposed. Time limit, I'll give you a month. Thank you. Yes, Jared? Jared?
Firstly, I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. And I've got quick twin issues to run by you, if you allow me. Firstly,
something related to this? or totally different?
No, different. I thought we are done with statements.
There is one more statement.
All right.
I'll give you an opportunity after
thank
that.
you. Thank you.
The next statement is Ondo. Something to do with what? Yes?
Speaker, I was just wondering loudly, under the standing orders of this House, special economic zones are oversighted by the Committee of Trade, Industry and Cooperative. An inquiry thought of through by the chair of the Committee of Finance, probably it would have been appropriate if there could be some kind of collaboration or a joint committee, because occasionally the same issues, we grapple with the same issues in our committee to wonder what's the economic impact of the incentives, or do they simply amount to tax expenditures that are adding no value to the economy of this country. So I was just seeking your indulgence if you could make it a joint committee.
When the statement came to me, take your seat, I actually thought in that direction, but when I read it carefully, it is dealing with matters of taxes and finance, much more than trade. But should it be necessary for the two committees to jointly act, I'll direct the clerk to speak to both of the chairmen and advise accordingly. But I think the pertinent issues raised relate much more to taxation and finance than trade. But you have a point, it had crossed my mind severally when I looked at the matter. Next member for Mwala, Vincent Musyoka. Yes, Kawaya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44-2C, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security regarding the mysterious death and cremation of Mr. William Alfred Mulwa Mutilangi, a Kenyan citizen of passport number CK32227. Honorable Speaker, until his death, Mr. Mutilangi was a renowned innovator working for Pepsi International in the state of New York, United States of America. Following his death, his remains were cremated in the USA by people who were not related to him under a power of attorney prepared by Kahudhu and Co-Advocates, a Kenyan law firm. The power of the attorney was obtained by one Mr. Bakari, an alleged Tanzanian national who claimed to be the deceased son. Honorable Speaker, of note, the deceased relatives were neither aware nor informed of the cremation, and this raises concerns on the motive and the hurried cremation. The family of the deceased has not been able to establish the cause of death because the funeral home where the remains of Mr. Mutilangi had been preserved declined to provide information, citing that it was receiving many inquiries from multiple interested parties. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security on the following matters. 1, what is the status of investigations into the suspicious hospitalization, mysterious death, and hurried cremation of Mr. Mutilangi in the USA under a power of attorney by Kahudhu and advocates under unclear circumstances without involvement of the family of the deceased? 2, what steps has the government taken to ensure that all perpetrators of the death and the issuers of the suspicious power of attorney for the cremation of Mr. Mutilangi are brought to book and prosecuted? 3, what actions has the government taken to ensure that Mr. Mutilangi's family is protected from threats by persons likely to be associated with his death, including securing them from being disinherited from the estate of their deceased kin? 4, what measures has the government put in place to ensure that all Kenyans who die in the diaspora are well preserved and their remains efficiently transported back to their families if they so wish. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Vincent, are you sure you directed this statement to the correct committee? If your man died in the US, don't you think it's more a foreign affairs matter than internal affairs? Yes, Raso? Just let me hear Raso.
Okay.
Give to Dida Raso.
Mr. Speaker, I think you are right, because that is a matter for foreign affairs and not actually Ministry of Interior, because the death happened in a foreign land.
It's a matter in foreign jurisdiction, Kawaya, so we route your request to the committee chaired by Honorable Koech. Is it defense and foreign? I think they'll do more justice to your response than internal security.
Maybe, Mr. Speaker, the thinking around this is that there's a criminal element to this statement, and I am wondering how the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is going to be capable to handle the criminal
you have
element.
your day with the internal affairs. Don't come back complaining.
Mr. Speaker. Unless, Mr. Speaker. Yeah.
Honorable Kawaya.
All right.
I'm advised by the clerk, and I believe to be true, that your matter will be handled by defense and foreign.
Defense and foreign.
Yes.
Thank you.
So if you want to make any progress inquiry, go to defense and foreign.
That would be...
Dida Raso and his team have very little to do with foreign jurisdiction.
I can see.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jared Okello.
Yes. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I've got two quick issues to run by you and by the House, Honorable Speaker. Firstly, is to thank you, Mr. Speaker, and your office for the material and emotional support that you offered the Okello family when we lost our brother Shem, Reverend Shem Okello.
Our collective condolences to you.
Thank you very much. And also to thank my colleagues who contributed quite generously and lessened the Okello family's burden to pass a dignified send-off to the late brother. And we hope that God will keep him in his glory. Honorable Speaker, the second limb of my concern relates to a communication that came from the national government CDF board yesterday to our respective fund managers, Honorable Speaker. Now, in that communication, all the fund managers are required to recall the proposals and remove anything touching on toilets to junior secondary schools, Honorable Speaker. Now, besides the fact that we only have 2 months into a new financial cycle, Honorable Speaker.
Toilet construction or toilets?
Yes, toilet construction, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Toilet construction.
Yes.
So we only have 2 months into a new financial year, Honorable Speaker. But again, they are putting emphasis on building classrooms and not toilets, Honorable Speaker. Now, you cannot build a classroom without sanitation at the end of the day, Honorable Speaker. Even in our very simple homes that we erect in the villages, or even here in the city, you start by a latrine or a toilet before you come up with the substantive structure, Honorable Speaker. So this is a concern that has been raised. We, just the other year, had applied a retroactive law on NGCDF Act as amended, Honorable Speaker. So this is also another way of delaying the projects by our constituencies, Honorable Speaker. And we only have 2 months. We only have next month and May into a new financial year, Honorable Speaker. So we have received communication from our managers, asking us what to do in light of this, Honorable Speaker. So you have always come to the rescue of this House when such confusions arise. And I believe, Honorable Speaker, that with your indulgence and your intervention on this, let us retain what we have 2 months into the new financial year. And when we shall come up with new proposals for the year 2024, 2025, then we can put all those concerns that they have into perspective and infuse them in those proposals as and when they will require them, Honorable Speaker. I thank you.
Where is Musa Sirma? Is there any member of the NGCDF committee in the House? Who is the vice chair? Majority Leader, you've heard what Jared is saying?
Honorable Speaker, I have heard what my friend Jared Okello has said. And it's true that NGCDF board has been asking fund managers and MPs to revise some of the proposals that have been sent. I, for one, was asked to revise mine, and I diligently did that so that I can fast-track the process. But more importantly, I think we need to have a conversation with the board so that things that are specific to constituencies, because MPs and fund managers understand the issues that they require in their constituencies. They should not be blocked from implementing. And actually, a lot of these proposals come from public participation. And because they come from public participation, the board, I don't think, should have a mandate to overturn something that came from a public participation. And therefore, I think constituencies should be allowed to implement their projects as mandated by the constituents. But we will also engage the board so that we understand why they are bringing these new things.
Is it a Jared Okello concern or is it a widespread concern? That's what...
I think a lot of the changes that have come in have affected a lot. I said, I was asked to make amendments to my proposal, and I thought some of them were ridiculous because that's what my people want. Why do you want me to do something else? I know there has been this issue of walls, that they have said you cannot build walls for using NGCDF funds. Several things that have come out. But I think we need to sit down with them so that we align to the demands of the constituents and what the constituency requires. I thank you.
Yes, Makali Mulu. 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think the matter being raised by Honorable Gerard is a very important matter because this particular year, Honorable Speaker, I think our select committee on CDF has let us down. This is the second time things have been done and procedurally. And I think the board needs to be told that there is a CDF Act and we also have regulations which very clearly state what should be done. It is not their work to micromanage constituencies. Their work is to look at policy issues and based on that, Honorable Speaker, guide the constituencies. They are micromanaging constituencies, which I don't think is fair. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as a first-time member of Parliament, the only resource that I have to serve the people who elected me is the CDF. And the board guided me to go to the people and come up with proposals that were supposed to be implemented over a 2-year period. Those proposals were documented, discussed, and verified by the people in confirmation meetings. For the board to come midway and try to change the process that is already understood by the members of the public is not only unfair, but it is making us appear in bad light among the people who elected us. Honorable Speaker, the fact that we are 2 months to the end of the financial year and the board is still playing back and forth.
Made your point. Nikal?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the most important thing that the board for NGCDF should do now is to disburse money. To come with problems here and there, bringing the proposals back and forth is basically a delaying tactic. We are far gone into the year. We need the money. You can't build classrooms, add more children, and you don't put toilets. What we need, let us have the money and use it. The year is ending. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mbui.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I think the CDF board is going overboard because they have, the mandate is just basically to implement what members get from the general public. And Mr. Speaker, there is a law that we use for NGCDF. And that law does not prohibit any constituency from building a school because full of children and they needed a wall so that they can be kept in. There is no law that prohibits a school from building toilets for their children. So these members of the board need to be careful, Mr. Speaker, and stop breaking the law. I think, Mr. Speaker, this one we must stand firm and say no. Let those things that the public want done in our schools be done as per the law.
Mutunga.
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, let me join my colleagues in asking the CDF board to release our money. Honourable Speaker, whatever they have released right now cannot service the 40% required for bursaries. You are at a loss as Member of Parliament to know whom should you give bursary. Are you going to give the universities and colleges? Are you going to give the secondary schools, or is it the day secondary schools? So we need that money, Honourable Speaker, and I think they are taking a little bit too long. Thank you.
I think we'll end there. Where is Musa Sirma? Is not here. Owen Bayer, you're directed to get Musa Sirma to bring a statement tomorrow at 2:30 on this matter. Members, it is not true that the board's duty is only to disburse money, but if what you are complaining is true, they're also overreaching themselves.
Okay.
So get Musa Sirma.
I am unreliably informed that Musa Sirma might be out of the country.
He's out of the country?
Yes.
Who is the vice chair of the committee?
I think it's Honorable Tandaza. Tandaza Sawa is the vice chair.
Tandaza has been here.
Yes, he's around. So
tell him to bring a statement tomorrow at 2:30.
Okay. Much obliged, Mr. Speaker.
Before we go to the next order, allow me to acknowledge the following institutions in our galleries, both public and Speaker's Gallery. In the Speaker's Gallery, we have Mamangina University, Gatundu South, Kiambu. We have Ikuda Boys Secondary School from Kitui South, Kitui. We have Kiongwani Secondary School from Kilome, Makueni. In the public gallery, we have Karai Day Secondary School from Kikuyu, Kiambu. Tengecha Boys Secondary School from Bureti, Kericho. Kihato Girls Secondary School from Mukurweini, Nyeri. Wamutitu Secondary School from Mukurweini, Nyeri. On behalf of the Speaker and the whole House, I welcome the students and their teachers to the House of Parliament. Next order.
Order number 8, motion, report of the Auditor General on financial statements of selected state corporations. Mover to reply.
Honorable members, I've been requested by the chairperson of Special Funds Accounts Committee to reorganize the order paper, and I've acceded that by the time we possibly reach order number 15, she will have left to go and observe her religious rights and duties. So I direct that that order be moved to Thursday morning. And honorable members, House business directed that you will have a sitting on Thursday morning from 9:30. So be notified and be in the House on Thursday morning at 9:30. Mover to reply, Chair Public Investments Committee on Commercial Affairs and Energy. That's Proceedings.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to reply. And in replying, Honorable Speaker, I want to thank members, honorable members of this House for supporting us and supporting our report. And being made and Speaker, also allow me to thank my committee for a good job and your officers, the Office of the Clerk, for doing a good job for us. And with those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply.
Thank you, Honorable Proceedings. Honorable members, order DK. Order Kasalu. Take your seats. The member for Kwale, take your seat. Honorable members, I now put the question at order number 8, which is that this House adopts the report of the Public Investments Committee on Commercial Affairs and Energy on its examination of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of selected state corporations laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 6th December 2023. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, the Care and Protection of Child Parents Bill, Senate Bill number 23 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to provide a framework for the care and protection of child parents within the counties, to provide a framework through which an expectant girl child or a child parent may actualize their right to basic education, and at the same time ensure the care of their children and for connected purposes. Order number 10, the National Government Administration Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 73 of 2023. Resumption of debate.
Yes, Honorable Nandi.
Honorable Speaker, I'm rising once again under Standing Order 47.3b. Yes, just keep it for me. Honorable Speaker, I just want to seek your indulgence.
When you say you are rising again, did you rise before?
I had risen some time last week on the same standing order, but for today, allow me to just seek your indulgence for me to raise certain issues.
Standing order number?
47.3b, read together with the celebrated ruling of Speaker J.B. Muturi.
Let me get you right. You rose on this same issue within this same debate?
No. I'm rising.
What do you mean by rising again?
Maybe I withdraw the remark, I withdraw the term again. And I simply say I'm rising under Standing Order 47.3b, which is actually self-explanatory. I don't want to belabor. But I want to... Can we have some order here, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, the Chairman, Budget Committee, and Agriculture Committee, Chair, and the Honorable Member for Nandi are having a baraza here.
Honorable Nandi and Okello.
They're actually hugging, Honorable Speaker, across the aisle. Honorable Speaker, the Standing Order 47.3b is quite clear. It's quite unambiguous. And if the Speaker is of the opinion that any proposed motion, and the motion here refers to both motions and bills, Honorable Speaker.
I know so.
Okay, thank you. Yes. At B is contrary to the Constitution or an act of Parliament without expressly proposing appropriate amendment to the Constitution or the Act of Parliament. Then you go further. The Speaker may direct that either the motion is inadmissible or that notice of it cannot be given without such alteration as the Speaker may approve, or that the motion be referred to the relevant committee of the Assembly, pursuant to Article 114(2) of the Constitution. But I want to take you back, Honorable Speaker, to take you to the now celebrated ruling by your predecessor, the Right Honorable J.B. Muturi. Honorable Speaker, the Honorable J.B. Muturi, on 21st December 2021, in a ruling on the constitutionality of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Amendment Bill, had this to say, very, very briefly. Had this to say. I can see the clerk is consulting with you. Okay. The Honorable Muturi, in his ruling on this particular day, was simply saying that before I guide the House on the pertinent questions for determination, it is worth noting that Articles 3 and 10 of the Constitution oblige the Chair to respect, uphold, and defend the Constitution. As you are aware, all business that comes before the House is approved by the Speaker, and among other considerations, the Speaker applies his mind as to the constitutionality or otherwise of such business as contemplated under Standing Order 47(3). Let me also hasten to add that notwithstanding the approval of any business by the Chair here implies the Speaker, under the standing orders, it has now become an established parliamentary practice of this House that a question of the constitutionality or otherwise of any matter under consideration by the House may be raised at any stage of its consideration. Indeed, my predecessors and I have been invited on several occasions to guide the House on issues of constitutionality of various matters before the House. Honorable Speaker, that ruling, read together with the Standing Order 47(3)(b), is what I'm relying on to plead with you to allow me to raise these constitutional issues concerning the motion under consideration, that is the National Government Administration Laws Amendment Bill 2023. And I will proceed, Honorable Speaker, to say as follows, and very, very briefly so, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Article 3 and Article 10 are clear. I don't want to really read them. Members are now conversant with those two articles provide for. But I've got issues, two issues in this bill. I'm aware the relevant committee, the Committee of Justice and Legal Affairs, has dealt with some of the issues. But there are two issues in this bill that I wouldn't want this House to proceed with and vote on while we know that we'll be acting in vain. Honorable Speaker, we'll be acting in vain. And this House cannot afford to act in vain. Honorable Speaker, the two issues are to do with, first, the establishment of the office of the head of public service. Two is the establishment of the office of what? Oh, called what is it? CSS are called what? Chief Administrative Secretaries. Those two offices, as contemplated in the bill, are outrightly unconstitutional. And therefore this House cannot proceed, should not really proceed to process this bill in the manner it is currently crafted. And I would really be inviting you to make a ruling before we can proceed with this motion. But let me say this. First, on the issue of the head of public service, Honorable Speaker, the bill is attempting to establish the office of the head of public service, Honorable Speaker, outside the Constitution. When you read the Constitution at Article 154, Article 154 of the Constitution establishes the office of the Secretary to the Cabinet with very clear functions and powers, Honorable Speaker. And I won't read them because they are clear. Members can read it for themselves. Article 154. As a matter of fact, if you allow me, 154, because I want to be mindful of time. 154, there is established the office of the Secretary of the Cabinet, which is an office in the public service. It goes on and on to enumerate the functions of this office as one, being in charge of the Cabinet Office, 2, being responsible for arranging the business and keeping the minutes of the Cabinet, and 3, conveying the decisions of the Cabinet to the appropriate persons or authorities, 4, to have other functions as directed by the Cabinet. Honorable Speaker, if you go to the bill, what the bill is assigning this office is laughable. And I'll be asking Honorable Mbui to assist me for the time being.
Let me listen to him.
Which page is that? This bill, Honorable Speaker, is attempting to assign the proposed head of the public office to be the chief of staff of the president, to be the administrative head of the executive office of the president, and previously to be the custodian of the seal, which I'm thinking now the committee has removed, okay? And so on and so forth, and to perform any such other functions as may be assigned by the president. Honorable Speaker, there is nothing in these functions as proposed in the bill that are not being performed by the Secretary of the Cabinet, which is a constitutional office established under Article 154 of the Constitution. So in other words, this House is being invited to create some kind of mongorel, to create some kind of office that will superintend over a constitutional office. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker, we are being invited in broad daylight to establish an office through an act of Parliament, to lord over a constitutional office under Article 154 of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker. That to me is outrightly unconstitutional. There is no other way you can keep it, Honorable Speaker. If you really want to establish such an office with distinct functions, then there is no shortcut. Just go to the Constitution and amend it. Amend the Constitution and remove powers from the Cabinet, from the Secretary of the Cabinet, and assign them to the office of the head of public service. But more importantly, Honorable Speaker, the head of public service is also going to attempt to perform functions that are only meant for the Public Service Commission. Public Service Commission, under Article 233 of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker. We are not even aware, I'm not even aware, because the bill is silent. Is this office, is this a state office or a public office? It's not even clear here. Because if it were a state office, it will be a different ball altogether, because there's no way you can establish a state office through an ordinary statute and stand to be corrected. You cannot. You cannot. And you cannot establish a public office which can only be done by the Public Service Commission and make it superior to a constitutional office under Article 154 of the Constitution. That is my issue with that particular office. I want to go to the second office. The office of the Chief Administrative Secretary. Honorable Speaker, Article 152 of the Constitution is very clear. It is the article that establishes the cabinet, and the cabinet is clearly composed of the president, the deputy president, the attorney general, and who? And the cabinet secretaries. Okay?
Committee on Implementation, so that when reports and resolutions have been reached, they should actually be implemented. Honorable Speaker, I also want to thank the Majority Leader for raising that matter of reports, because these are the things the Senator for Nairobi would be able to check on the spending that is not priority and should be redirected towards service. Honorable Speaker, allow me to comment on the statement by Senator Gerard Gay on the issue of subsidized fertilizer. Honorable Speaker, in the North Rift, we are now in the planting season, and Honorable Speaker, as we speak today, farmers are having challenges because of the delays in the delivery of subsidized fertilizer, and the ministry's decision to deliver fertilizer to National Cereals and Produce Board. Particularly today, as we speak, Honorable Speaker, a lot of fertilizer is being delivered to Eldred National Cereals and Produce Board depot, creating a lot of traffic and unnecessary queues. Honorable Speaker, this statement is timely because we would like the ministry to ensure that these subsidized fertilizer are actually distributed to farmer store in the cooperatives. Honorable Speaker, one of the cooperatives, progressive cooperative from Moiben sub-county, which carries about 8,000 farmers and require close to over 10,000 bags of fertilizer. As we speak today, Honorable Speaker, they have not received a single bag. We would like the ministry, therefore, to move with speed and ensure that the distribution of subsidized fertilizer, particularly for Uasin Gishu County, Trans Nzoia County, Bungoma County, Nandi County, who are now in the planting season, Honorable Speaker, is prioritized so that we can have food in this country. What the ministry needs to know is that any delay in distribution of fertilizer to these counties will result in reduced production. What most of the people in the logistics chain don't understand is maize as a crop is a crop that goes by the timelines and the days that is supposed to mature. And therefore, when there is delay, already then we shall be having reduced productivity. Honorable Speaker, we want to encourage the Cabinet Secretary to also address the issue of distribution of fertilizer where fertilizer has reached stores. This morning, Honorable Speaker, we had complaints from farmers from Kipkabos in Kaptagat Ward, where, Honorable Speaker, we had 4 lorries of fertilizer, but farmers had to wait the whole morning to this afternoon until a farmer complained and we intervened so that fertilizer can be distributed. The ministry should be able to check on the officers. These could be avenues where logistics officers are waiting to be bribed so that they can release fertilizer to a few farmers. We would want them to make it efficient and ensure small-scale farmers who are going to collect 1, 2, 3 bags, less than 10, are given their own queue so that they don't have to queue with large-scale farmers. Honorable Speaker, I support these statements. Thank you.
Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the Senator for Turkana. Mr. Speaker, you know, recently we visited Turkana County and the different committees of this House went on different missions in the county to deal with the matters which had come before this House related to Turkana County. Mr. Speaker, the LAPSET project is a very major project running all the way from Lamu to South Sudan and eases transportation, Mr. Speaker, and it deals with a lot of challenges which deal with this transportation, Mr. Speaker, and at the same time electricity generation in that particular area where there's a lot of wind and also the waves of Lake Turkana. Mr. Speaker, I'm told by the said Senator Lomenen that when the winds flow, the Lake Turkana is able to produce a lot of waves and you can easily tap electricity in that particular. In fact, he tells me one time, Mr. Speaker, he was on a flight in an helicopter and the wind was so much that the helicopter was stagnant. Meaning, Mr. Speaker, this wind is very powerful around that area and we can use it to support the generation of power and at the same time ease and transport and the security challenges, Mr. Speaker, on our connection to South Sudan, Ethiopia and many other places. Mr. Speaker, I support and suggest that it is a very, very important matter which I think the country has slowed on. And finally, on the air crash which happened recently by Senator Chimera, Mr. Speaker, that particular area and Wilson Airport is used for training young pilots. Mr. Speaker, at the same time, near that there is a main flight path of the international flights and many other smaller flights, Mr. Speaker, which go to different destinations in the country. And therefore, it is important that we synchronize the training and the normal flight paths, Mr. Speaker, and make the regulations very strict, Mr. Speaker, to avoid another accident of this nature happening. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kenywa.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipa fursa hii. Nataka kuchangia kuunga mkono taarifa iliyoletwa na Senator Cherargei kuhusu pembejeo ya bei nafuu. Bi Spika, ukweli wa mambo ni ya kwamba serikali kuu imejitolea kwamba wakulima waweze kupata pembejeo ya bei nafuu. Bwana Spika, lakini si kupata tu, lakini inapaswa ipelekwe mpaka mahali wakulima wako Bwana Spika, pale vijijini Bwana Spika. Kwa sababu Bi Spika, kwa sababu ukiangalia Bi Spika, mahali ambapo pembejeo hii inaletwa inapelekwa mijini Bwana Bi Spika, na wakulima wengi hawayuko mijini. Ukitembea kama Laikipia unapata ile pembejeo haifikishwi mashinani kabisa. Ipelekwe Sipili mahali wakulima wako Bi Spika. Ipelekwe mahali kunaitwa Salama. Ipelekwe Matanya mahali wakulima wako, lakini si kupelekwa mijini mahali ambapo wakifikisha mijini wanasema pembejeo imefikishwa kwa wakulima. Bi Spika, unaona ni kinaya kwa sababu tunaongea kuhusu pembejeo, lakini nimetaarifa naunga mkono taarifa ya Senator Wakoli kutoka Bungoma, kwa sababu hata pembejeo hii ikija, na msimu huu ni msimu wa mvua, na unasikia kwamba Senator anasema ya kwamba hakuna mahindi ya kupanda. Ni vizuri tuwe na mbegu, na anataka kuunga mkono kwa sababu msimu huu ni msimu wa kupanda. Wakulima wanahitaji mbegu, na mbegu ambazo ni mbegu ambazo zimefanyiwa utafiti, mbegu ambazo ni bei nzuri, ambazo mazao yake yataweza kuleta mavuno ambayo wananchi wa Kenya watafurahia. Bi Spika, kwa sababu serikali imesema vizuri majukumu yake makubwa, na hasa serikali imejitolea ikasema itaweza kupunguza gharama ya maisha, na bei ya maisha itapunguzwa tu ijapo tutapata mbegu ambazo zimekubalika, mbegu ambazo zimefanyiwa utafiti kisayansi, na zile ambazo zitaleta mavuno ambayo itaweza kukubalika. Bi Spika, naunga mkono na nashukuru kwa kunipa fursa hiyo. Asante Bi Spika.
Senator Beth Singo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance. Madam Speaker, allow me to comment on the statement raised by Senator Ezena Lemetian on the environment. Madam Speaker, it is embarrassing to see that we are living in Kenya where we are supposed to take responsibilities as Kenyans to ensure that we live in clean environment. It is disheartening to see that our surroundings are not kept. Dumping of dirty and dirt is all over surrounding us. And we know as Kenyans that we expect to live in clean environment, and this will encourage also no spread of diseases. Madam Speaker, in the month of December, we went to another country where we had gone for games. And I was really challenged to see how Rwanda is clean. And I wondered, what went wrong in Kenya that we cannot live in such a clean environment? Madam Speaker, I would support this statement to say we really need policies that will ensure that environment is kept clean, and those who are charged with the responsibilities of ensuring that cleaning is done, then it is done properly. Madam Speaker, I feel to encourage this House, as we are now talking about climate change, to ensure that we are not only concentrating on planting trees and other activities that are done talking of climate change, but we also ensure that our surroundings, our environment is clean. Madam Speaker, looking at the disposal of wastes from our estates, from our homes. It is discouraging to find that people can dump waste anywhere and all over. We need to develop a culture of cleanliness. They say cleanliness is next to godliness. Kenyan country is a godly country, and I know majority of us are Christians. Why can't we develop that culture right from our families, in schools, in towns, in estates, to ensure waste disposal is properly managed and we live in clean environment? It is important that we have proper means and ways of managing our waste. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the statement. Secondly, allow me, Madam Speaker, also to touch on the statement raised by Senator Gloria Oroba. Madam Speaker, the hospitals within Nairobi County are the hospitals that do not only carry the burden and attend to the residents of Nairobi. People from rural areas also come to these facilities. Mama Lucy, Bagathi, and many other hospitals within the city. Madam Speaker, it is important that the bed capacity, the facilities, the nurses, the doctors are taken care of. And the county of Nairobi, the county government of Nairobi ensures that the facilities are kept well to serve not only Nairobi residents, but also those who are referred and others come from upcountry to seek medical attention in Nairobi County. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the statements.
Thank you. Senator David Wakoli, Wafula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. I want to weigh in on the matter of subsidized fertilizer. Several weeks ago, Honorable Speaker, the Agriculture Committee was doing its work on the public participation tours in the western part of the Republic. To our surprise, Honorable Speaker, we made a surprise visit to Bungoma NCPB, where we bumped into only 9 bags of fertilizer for planting, Honorable Speaker. And this is after the residents of Bungoma were up in arms in Bungoma town, in Webuye, in Kimaiti, and all the other distribution centers, complaining of the lack of enough fertilizer for planting. A call was made to the MD, who assured the people of Bungoma that in 1 or 2 weeks' time, we'll have 40,000 bags, and at the end of the month, we'll have over 100 bags of planting fertilizer. To date, Honorable Speaker, is still a story of the fairy tale. Time is up for these people to either pull up their socks or to ship out. We cannot afford to go back to the days of people marching on the streets with tools and equipment for cooking, purportedly seeking for rain to come down and shower crops. Honorable Speaker, the matter of quality seeds in Kenya Seed Company. There is a shortage of seed, quality seed in particular, and I will not be surprised, Honorable Speaker, if we do a thorough audit of this infrastructure, we'll be surprised to find that there is a problem that needs to be solved. And I want to request government and the committee in charge to swiftly move with speed to ascertain these uncertainties and give direction to Kenyans, and in particular, my great people of Bungoma and Trans Nzoia. Honorable Speaker, something else that is cropping up, which has been mentioned through the Huduma Center in Bungoma. Several weeks ago, staffs of the Huduma Center were reshuffled, transferred, without recognizing the fact that they have commitment, financial commitment, family commitments that need proper adjustment. The same thing was seen the other day when I raised a matter on this floor as pertaining to railways, where a people of a particular ethnic orientation have been frustrated, intimidated, harassed, and their tools of operation in their offices confiscated by the DCI purportedly.
Honorable Senator, let me guide you. I do not think you can debate on the statements that you brought to the floor
I'm
of the House.
contributing, Honorable
You
Speaker.
can contribute to other statements brought by other senators to the floor of the House.
Thank you,
Please
Speaker.
be guided and comment accordingly.
Finally, on the matter of prudent, as elaborated, the matter of health, as my good friend Sifuna said, it is important that the committee moves with speed and the financial statements, as requested by Senator Lekina, to be facilitated to senators. This will ensure that we do our work appropriately. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Oburu Oginga.
Thank you, Madam, for the opportunity to contribute. Madam, I want to make the contribution on the statement sought by my brother here, the Senator for Turkana County, and this is on the rural electrification, REREC. He has sought a statement from REREC asking them to activate electrification programs, rural electrification programs in Turkana. Madam Speaker, people don't think of Turkana as a great potential, as having a great potential for development. And when you bring electricity, Madam, this is a very big trigger for development in Turkana. Turkana is a very, very rich country. When you go there, some people just look at the heat. But Madam Speaker, apart from the heat, there is a lot of wealth underground. There is wealth of oil. There is wealth of water. There is a whole lake underground in Turkana, Madam Speaker. And I hope that this statement, which is seeking for the rural electrification, they used to be much more active than the Kenya Power themselves. But I want them to wake up and impress us by taking steps to activate the REREC. This is now a new one called Rural Electrification and REREC. They should take up steps to activate the electrification in Turkana. Madam Speaker, electrification is such an important venture that in my county, my own county, Siaya, I was perplexed, Madam Speaker, yesterday when I went to the rural area, and I found a whole industry for milling of rice, which has been put up by the county, is not able to be commissioned, Madam Speaker, just because of upgrading electricity to three-phase. Because without electricity, Madam, actually there is no development, there is no meaningful development. So, Madam Speaker, I don't want to take a lot of time. I've just stood up to support the statement sought by my brother, Senator for Turkana, on REREC. And, Madam Speaker, I hope that steps will be taken to activate these activities in Turkana County. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Karungo Thangwapol.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to support the statement by Senator Uroba about health issues, and especially in our hospitals. In the county of Nairobi, not forgetting my home county, that is Kiambu County, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, health is the most basic yet very fundamental and important thing a human being would require to have the best of, Madam Speaker. And sometimes I ask myself, you know, the drafters of the Constitution, whether they did the right thing to surrender these hospitals to the governors, Madam Speaker. Because sometimes I ask myself, if they could not trust the governors with our education, because you see the governors, they don't have, it's not a function of county government when it comes to primary, high school, or even universities. They could trust the governors with our health, Madam Speaker. And that is something that we need to rethink, because health, first of all, is universal, and health is one of the most important things that we need to look into as a country. And I want to thank the Committee on Health, Madam Speaker, because we have taken some statements to them. They have embarked on visiting counties to see what the state of the hospitals in various counties, Madam Speaker. I know I have a statement with the Health Committee on the issue of health insurance for the employees of Kiambu County Government, and they were supposed to visit Kiambu County last week, but the committee postponed that due to reasons that I understand very well. So, Madam Speaker, I believe standing committees are the committees that are going to assist this Senate to do its oversight mandate. Because as I always say, the committees, CPIC and CIPA committees are mere morticians, Madam Speaker, because they only check what the Auditor General has said. If the Auditor General says this county had no fault at all, we will do nothing as those committees, Madam Speaker. But if we take our job seriously as the standing committees, and we visit our counties as the other committees have been visiting different counties, we are going to find that county governors and county governments are not doing what they are supposed to do, and we rectify and we take the necessary precaution. Instead of waiting for them to break the law, then we wait for the Auditor General, then the Auditor General to do a report to CPIC and CIPAC, and then we'll be looking at these reports a year later, 2 years later. Like now, we are looking into the issues that the previous governors, the crime or the mistakes the previous governors had committed, they're being now answered by this committee, by the current governors, Madam Speaker. As I conclude, Madam Speaker, and I'm saying that because I know these committees, Health Committee, Agriculture Committee, and other committees, Madam Speaker, without mentioning my committee, which is Roads and Transportation, if we are keen on protecting devolution, let's visit the counties. Next week, let's have the Environment Committee in Kiambu to check out why Kiambu is going to miss on FLOCA, the money for climate change, about over 110 million, Madam Speaker, just because, Madam Speaker, the governor there is refusing to comply. Madam Speaker, let's have the Agriculture Committee to go to Kiambu County and check the distribution of fertilizer, the chicks, and everything, Madam Speaker. Let's have the Energy Committee visit Kiambu, Madam Speaker, to check why the county government has refused the installation of street lights, Madam Speaker. Let's have the Education Committee, Madam Speaker, visit Kiambu and check how many ECDs that have been built in that county, Madam Speaker, because I believe we're being lied to, Madam Speaker. Let's have the Finance Committee of this Senate visit Kiambu, Madam Speaker, and other counties to find out why the county government has refused to pay pending bills worth 5.7 billion. Also to find why the county that has projected to collect 7 billion as own source revenue has only collected 1.6 billion, Madam Speaker. Let's have the Labour Committee visit Kiambu, Madam Speaker, and see why the promotion of employees in the county has been put on hold until 2026, Madam Speaker. Let's the Land Committee, Madam Speaker, visit Kiambu County and find out why the people of Oderiwa Lari have not been given their land, yet they paid for that land, Madam Speaker. What I'm trying to say is, it is a high time we as the Senate, the Standing Committee, we redeem ourselves and we go to the counties, we meet the governors face to face and tell them they are doing injustice to the devolution that we have fought for, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Senator James Lomenen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to support a statement by Senator Cherengei. Madam Speaker, as we supply subsidies, fertilizer subsidies to farmers, we should also remember that there are areas of North Rift or northern part of Kenya. We also need animal feeds. And these animal feeds helps actually, Madam Speaker, to improve the DGP of the nation. it is injustice, Madam Speaker, to farmers in other areas to enjoy fertilizer subsidies, yet farmers, livestock traders, livestock others, or livestock owners in northern part of Kenya do not enjoy the animal feeds. So as we think of farmers of fertilizer, we should also think of animals feeds in northern part of Kenya. Madam Speaker, I support with that resolution.
Senator Madago, you want to inform Senator for Turkana. You should use your machine, your equipment. I do not have any request.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wanted to inform the Senator for Turkana that the government
Does
through
he
the
want to be informed? Senator for Turkana, would you wish to be informed by Senator Madago? Okay, he allows you to
Yes,
inform.
thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to inform the Senator for Turkana that through the National Drought Management Authority, the national government has actually been supporting livestock farmers through the offtake of livestock, particularly during the dry periods, and supply of feeds, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would only urge the Senator for Turkana to ask for supply of grass seeds so that grass can be planted during rainy seasons in the northern parts of Kenya. And we want to support the Senator for Samburu because they lost over 7 kilometers of pasture through fires, which we believe they should also be compensated so that livestock farmers can also continue benefiting from government. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Mwinyi Mohamed Faki.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also wanted to support the statement by Senator Olekina on the budget making and utilization in several counties, including Mombasa, my own county. Madam Speaker, it is true that the performance of Mombasa County in terms of budget implementation has not been up to standard in the current administration. For instance, Madam Speaker, in the year 2022-2023, we failed to meet our target on on-source revenue by about 1.2 billion shillings. Madam Speaker, this will have a bearing. It will have a bearing on the projects that the government has had put in place to implement in the financial year 2022-2023. Number two, there are also high levels of pending bills. At the moment, the pending bills stand at 3.92 billion shillings as of 31st December 2023. Madam Speaker, this is against the fact that there was available a sum of 2.91 billion available in the county revenue fund, which was supposed to be used to offset some of those pending bills. Madam Speaker, these pending bills are worsening and they'll have a bearing on the future financial performance of a county of Mombasa. Number three, Madam Speaker, youth and empowerment programs that are supposed to be undertaken in the county. Madam Speaker, Mombasa being the port city, at the moment you have the largest youth unemployment. If you look at the report by the Control of Budget, it places the youth unemployment at 44%. Roughly 4 out of every 10 youths are jobless at the moment, Madam Speaker. However, our county government has not undertaken any projects, Madam Speaker, that will be geared towards reduction of this youth unemployment. And this will have a bearing also, Madam Speaker, on budget absorption and also development in the county of Mombasa. So, Madam Speaker, finally, there was the issue of diversion of funds in the county treasury and weak budgeting practice. Madam Speaker, this one also will have a bearing. And at the moment, Madam Speaker, as we speak, the county government of Mombasa does not have a financial act for the year 2024 or 2025. So, Madam Speaker, I fully support the statement by Senator Nekina, and I will urge the Finance Committee, of which I'm a member, to quickly deal with these issues so that we can arrest any future bottlenecks that will arise as a result of this failure by these counties that are mentioned in this statement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Oruba.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to support the statement by Senator Wakoli on Huduma centers, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as the committee is going to be responding to the issues, particularly about the staff members and how they are being deployed, their contracts and all those details, Madam Speaker, I think I want to add my voice in terms of the Huduma centers. We were informed that we are going to get more Huduma centers, and actually the clarion call was that the Huduma centers would be devolved to an extent that we would have every Kenyan down in the remote areas being able to access a Huduma center without having to travel for long distances, Madam Speaker. As the committee tackles this issue, Madam Speaker, I would also want to request that if they can get information on the plans of devolving Huduma centers, Madam Speaker. I come from Bobasi constituency in Kisii County. It is a very, very huge constituency, Madam Speaker, with 8 wards. And we have Kenyans from as far as Nyacheki ward who cannot or do not have the capacity to access the Huduma center on the other side of town, Madam Speaker. So it would be imperative that we are informed, if at all there are any plans to devolve and make sure that Huduma centers go down to at least having 1 Huduma center on each ward, then so that we can be able to know that all Kenyans are getting the services that they require from Huduma centers. Madam Speaker, I would also want to request that the committee looks into how they can collaborate with NYS as a human resource capacity to partner with Huduma centers, Madam Speaker. We have a lot of youth who are under NYS. They have been trained in various capacity, and I think that there is an opportunity there for them to being able to assist in some of the duties that we have in Huduma Center, Madam Speaker. As I speak, as I said, I'm from Bobasi constituency, and we have many youths that have been recruited from my constituency, and they would really serve in great capacity in these Huduma centers if we were able to make sure that we bring it down to the ward level. I therefore support the statement on the deployment of policy and staff serving at Huduma centers by the Senator for Bungoma, Senator Wakoli. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Eddie Okech.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise actually to support a very, very important statement by my brother, Senator Cherargei Samson of Nandi, on the distribution of subsidized fertilizers to farmers in North Rift and other parts of the country. And it's very important that my brother has put that other parts of the country, because I don't think that this is a problem that is only in North Rift and the entire country is suffering, Madam Speaker. If you remember last year, Madam Speaker, one of the reasons why the government really suffered last year was because of drought. And that drought also meant that the economy was impacted because we're not very sure about the harvest that we'll have last year. And the issue of subsidized fertilizer, Madam Speaker, is an issue that came very prominently at the beginning of last year. And Madam Speaker, I dare say that because we had some rain last year, Madam Speaker, we reached to a point whereby that, the fact that drought went a little bit low last year and the fact that the money market opened a little bit, the economy was able to regain some sense of normalcy. But Madam Speaker, where we are going right now, where it is so late in the year in terms of planting season, and farmers have not received this subsidized fertilizer, Madam Speaker. I was in Narok 2 weeks ago, when I think about 3 weeks ago, we were together with the minority deputy whip, as well as the minority whip, Madam Speaker. And the people in Narok were really crying that they are getting fertilizer, Madam Speaker, I'll quote this. They were saying they are getting fertilizer kama machozi. Ni kidogo sana. So, Madam Speaker, this is an issue that if it's not addressed, it has got a serious effect in the economy, because it could actually take the economy back to where we were last year. If we don't get subsidies on time, and if we don't get this fertilizer on time, Madam Speaker, a place like Migori, where I come from, farmers have never seen anything like this, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I think that this issue is not only about getting this subsidized fertilizer. We must go to the core of business. And the core of business, Madam Speaker, is the people who are supplying this fertilizer. We need to know what are the ship lines for this fertilizer, Madam Speaker, that are supplying, that were given this contract to bring in the country. Which are these companies, Madam Speaker, that were given the tenders to be able to bring this fertilizer? And they must explain to us whether they actually really understood the scope of the farmers they need to supply. How many farmers were being targeted by this shipment? And if we cannot know the number of farmers, at least which regions were they certain that were going to give? Because if you talk about somewhere like North Rift, Madam Speaker, North Rift is where the serious backbone of leadership of this country comes from. Cherargei himself is a very serious member of this parliament and a ranking member of this house. And Madam Speaker, you know that the North Rift is also where our president, our dear president, who have got nothing against Madam Speaker, but you know very well that, Madam Speaker, if you look at a place like Eldoret, you know, people right now are queuing in Eldoret. I saw it the other day, Cherargei, and people are queuing for fertilizer. Up, 60% of the people are queuing there don't even get fertilizer. So, Madam Speaker, you can imagine if where Cherargei comes from, where the majority leader of this house comes from, where the president of this country comes from, people are queuing for fertilizer and they cannot get fertilizer. Just imagine somewhere like Nyatike, where I come from, Madam Speaker. Nyatike does not even have proper roads to begin with. If you go to Masangora in Kuria, it is at the far end of Migori County, Madam Speaker. If you go to a place like, in Rongo, where farmers really are passionate about doing agriculture and they're dedicated to do agriculture, Madam Speaker, imagine if there's no fertilizer in a place like Eldoret. How are they supposed to get this fertilizer, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, you remember last year, we did go to Turkana, where we spent time as a house in Senate Mashinani, and we went to a place like Katilu, irrigation scheme. And even there, Madam Speaker, you will realize that the distribution of fertilizer was only going to a place like Lokicha and somewhere like in Lodwa, but Mashinani areas like Katilu, the fertilizer was not getting to those places. So this is something that I hope that we can have a bipartisan approach, and I hope that this won't be just one of those statements where Senator Cherargei is serviced with a response from the ministry. I think that the responsible minister or the CS must appear before the relevant committee, and I want to wish the courage some of the senators in this house, like the majority leader, to actually go there and to make sure that this minister can be put to task to be able to answer to the fact that farmers are not getting this fertilizer. And as I finish, Madam Speaker, I've always held the view that when we think about subsidy for farm inputs, it must not stop only on fertilizer, because Cherargei will not eat only ugali without some meat or ugali without some fish. Madam Speaker, Cherargei loves meat so much. And therefore, when it's the subsidy for crops in this country, Madam Speaker, there also need to be subsidy for animal feeds for people in Nyatike, animal feeds for people in Kuria, animal feeds for people in Narok, as well as people who are growing fish in Lake Victoria. We need to start having to see the government also subsidizing animal feeds to make sure that agriculture is subsidized in totality to make production a real production and not a pseudo production that we are seeing here. And I hope that when they start subsidizing animal feeds, Madam Speaker, there will be more transparency in terms of who are the suppliers, who are the contractors, and what are the shipments that are bringing this thing in the country. And therefore, Madam Speaker, it's a very important statement, and I support, and I hope that we'll follow it to fruition. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Senators, we have finished with time that we had allocated for statements. I have two more senators remaining. Maybe I'll give you 2 minutes each so that we close that session. Senator Chirarike and Senator Julius Mulgo. Just 2 minutes each. No, let's have Senator Chirarike first, so Senator Mulgo, resume your seat.
My apologies. Mr. Speaker, this statement could not go on because as the Vice Chair of the Senate County Public Accounts Committee, I thought it is important that I support the statement by Senator Ledama Olekina. I think this is where the meat is, Madam Speaker. And I want to challenge that we should go beyond these counties that have been mentioned. The issue of supplementary budgets and approval, Madam Speaker, there have been instances where the controller of budget is approving some of the items, Madam Speaker, that cannot be seen. When you look at the payment vouchers, the requisition from the counties, Madam Speaker, it is nowadays like a love letter by county governors, Madam Speaker. They just write, we want requisition of 100 million. Then if the controller of budget asks what is the itemized issues that you need, they just get the names, Madam Speaker, and that is why we're having a problem of pending bills, Madam Speaker. That is why we're having challenge, Madam Speaker, and therefore, I want to challenge the Office of the Controller of Budget to be very vigilant, especially when they are giving requisitions, Madam Speaker. We are aware that there are some officers within COB who are seeing each other with governors behind the tent, Madam Speaker. It is my clarion call that a governor walks in, write a requisition, when their time to release the funds, some of the officers within COB demand a certain percentage. And that is why lifestyle audit of some of the controller of budget officers, Madam Speaker, they should be done lifestyle audit. A number of them have been migrating to Karen, Runda, Kileleshwa, among other high-end estates, and also having unexplained wealth, Madam Speaker. So even now that governors have realized it is easy, get an approved supplementary budget, Madam Speaker, or a budget that has been approved by the County Assembly, Madam Speaker, then we need that action to be taken so that, and I look forward that this should be committee of the whole, and all 47 counties should be included. I support, Madam.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Mulgo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also join my colleagues in airing my views about the subsidy of fertilizer. It is common knowledge, Madam Speaker, that there is plenty of food now in Kenya because of the subsidized fertilizer that we received last year. And so with that plentifulness, there is a lot of joy and happiness in the nation about availability of food, unlike what it was in the other previous years that some of the marginalized areas faced a lot of starvation from now and then. And at this point, that in those areas now, February, March, April, there would be shortage of food, and therefore that subsidized fertilizer did wonders last year. And therefore, it is causing a lot of anxiety now that it is either not there or it is little, because the lines that people make just proves that it is not available. And therefore, the minister concerned should really be made aware by the system so that he makes the commodity available. I support.
Thank you, Senator. Next order.
Order number 8, motion, report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the 2024 medium-term debt management strategy.
Senator Mohamed Faki.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Finance, Budget on the 2024 medium-term debt management strategy, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 7th of March, 2024. Madam Speaker, the 2024 medium-term debt management strategy, MTDS, was submitted to Parliament by the National Treasury and Economic Planning on 15th of February, 2024, pursuant to Section 33 of the Public Finance Management Act, Cap 412A. The Act provides that on or before the 15th of February in each year, the Cabinet Secretary shall submit to Parliament a statement setting out the debt management strategy of the national government over the medium term with respect to its actual liability and potential liability in respect of loans and guarantees and its plans of dealing with those liabilities. Madam Speaker, upon submission of the 2024 MTDS, the MTDS was tabled in the Senate at the sitting held on 15th of February. Thereafter, it was referred to the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget for consideration, facilitation of public participation, and consequent tabling of a report in the Senate. Madam Speaker, Section 33, subsection 2 of the PFM Act provides that MTDS shall be aligned to the broad strategic priorities and policy goals as set out in the Budget Policy Statement, BPS, which the Senate approved last week. Section 33, subsection 3 of the same Act provides that the Cabinet Secretary shall include in the statement the following information. A, the total stock of debt as at the date of the statement. B, the sources of loans made to the national government and the nature of guarantees given by the national government. C, the principal risks associated with those loans and guarantees. D, the assumptions underlying the debt management strategies. And E, an analysis of the sustainability of the amount of debt, both actual and potential. Madam Speaker, the 2024 MTDS outlines the strategies and initiatives to be implemented with the goal of minimizing debt management costs, risks, and it covers the period from financial year 2024-25 and 2026-2027. Madam Speaker, at the end of June 2023, the nominal amount of publicly guaranteed debt was Kenya shilling 10,278 billion, or 70.8% of GDP. This comprised of an external debt stock of Kenya shillings 5.44 trillion and a domestic debt stock of Kenya shillings 4.832 trillion. According to the National Treasury, the total nominal stock of public and publicly guaranteed debt as at February 2024 was Kenya shillings 11.248 trillion, or 69.7% of GDP. Present value of public debt to GDP is 67.2%. This comprises of external debt stock of Kenya shillings 6.189 trillion and a domestic debt stock of Kenya shillings 5.058 trillion. The National Treasury committed to bringing down the present value of debt as a percentage of GDP from 67.2% to 55% over a period of 5 years in accordance with the requirements of Section 50 of the Public Finance Management Act, PFM Act. Madam Speaker, the foreign public debt is composed of multilateral, bilateral, and commercial creditors, categorized as follows. A, Kenya shillings 3.118 trillion has multilateral debts, accounting for 50% of the total external debt. B, Kenya shillings 1.399 trillion bilateral debts at 23%, and C, Kenya shillings 1.671 trillion commercial debts at 27%, of which Eurobonds account for 1.14 trillion or 18%. Domestic debt mainly comprises of treasury bonds and bills. A, Kenya shillings 4.272 trillion in treasury bonds, amounting to 85% of the total domestic debt, and B, Kenya shillings 565.63 billion treasury bills, accounting for 11%, and Kenya shillings 220.16 billion, or 4% of others. These are overdrafts from Central Bank of Kenya, IMF special drawing rights, SDR, and allocation and bank advances that are due. Madam Speaker, at the end of June 2023, the government guaranteed debt to Kenya Power and Lighting Company, KPLC, Kenya Post Authority, KPA, Kenya Electricity Generating Company, KenGen, and Kenya Airways amounted to Kenya shillings 170.2 billion. The called up guaranteed loan of 82 billion relates to KQ, that is Kenya Airways guaranteed debt. Madam Speaker, the fiscal deficit for the year 2024-2025 is approved under the 2024 BPS is Kenya shillings 703 billion. Madam Speaker, this might come down as a result of the strengthening of the Kenya shilling. MTDS proposes that this deficit will be funded by both foreign and domestic borrowing. The net foreign financing will be Kenya shillings 362.12 billion, while domestic financing will be Kenya shillings 377.75 billion. Madam Speaker, in terms of optimal borrowing approach or strategy, the MTDS seeks to minimize costs and refinancing risks in the debt portfolio by maximizing access to external concessional borrowing. Over the medium term, the optimal borrowing strategy assumes a mix of 45% domestic and a 55% external financing. Madam Speaker, the National Treasury submitted that the total debt sustainability analysis, DSA, conducted in December 2023 indicates that Kenya's public debt remains sustainable, although there is a risk of debt distress. It is anticipated that the PV of debt to GDP, present value of debt to GDP ratio, will remain above the approved threshold of 55% until the year 2029 or financial year 2028-2029. This is expected to decline gradually to 48.1% in 2023 as a result of fiscal consolidation. Madam Speaker, further scrutiny of the external debt sustainability analysis indicates that throughout the forecast period, the present value of public debt and publicly guaranteed external debt to GDP ratio remains below the 40% threshold. Madam Speaker, PV of PPG external debt to export solvency indicator remains above 180% threshold through 2029. The debt service to exports liquidity indicator surpasses its 15% threshold due to the repayment of Eurobonds in 2024 and in 2028, as well as the rollover of external bank loans in 2025 and 2026. The breaches in debt thresholds in terms of exports indicate increased vulnerability of public debt to export and financing shocks. It is clear from the cost and risk analysis of the current public debt portfolio that a depreciation of Kenya shilling against major currency increased the nominal debt to GDP ratio to 70.8% in June 2023 from 67% in December 2022. B, the total interest payments as a share of GDP increased to 5.5% as at June 2023 from 5.3% as at December 2022. Number C, the weighted average interest rate of external debt increased to 4.5% in June 2023 compared to 3.9% in December 2022. The average time to maturity of the total portfolio declined from 8.8 years in December 2022 to 8.5 years in June 2023. The projected debt redemption profile is characterized by large maturities in 2028, 2029, and 2030 on account of Eurobond and bank syndicated debts. Madam Speaker, noteworthy findings made by the committee include that the stock of public and publicly guaranteed debt is Kenya shillings 11.248 trillion, comprising of a domestic debt of 5.058 trillion, 45%, and an external debt of Kenya shillings 6.89 trillion, being 55%. This is an increase of Kenya shillings 970 billion from the Kenya shillings 10 trillion 278 by the end of the year 2022-2023, and is attributed to the exchange rate movements and additional borrowing, among other factors. The present value of debt to GDP stands at 67.2% against the recommended benchmark of 55% as provided for in Section 50 of the PFM Act. Whereas this is a breach against the benchmark, the National Treasury projects that the present value of debt will be aligned with the benchmark by financial year 2028-2029 through the defined fiscal consolidation path. This, however, requires regular reporting to Parliament to enhance continuous oversight and ensure compliance. Number C, although the debt carrying capacity declined from strong in 2021 to medium as at December 2023, the National Treasury indicates that the overall debt levels remain sustainable. The risk of debt distress is high due to global shocks that can potentially exacerbate macroeconomic vulnerabilities and subdue economic performance. D, the recent liquidity management measures undertaken in February 2024 involve partial payback of US dollars 1.5 billion of the US dollar 2 billion Eurobond maturing in June 2024, addressed the settlement risk associated with the bond and has consequently influenced key macro variables such as exchange rate dynamics and investor sentiments. CE, Madam Speaker, the proposed fiscal deficit for the year 2024-2025 of Kenya shillings 703.9 billion is to be financed through net foreign financing of 55% and net domestic financing 45%. Despite the National Treasury indication that the national government will favor concessional borrowing, there is a proposed commercial borrowing in financial year 2024-2025 of Kenya shillings 151 billion, which has the potential worsening the debt position as commercial loans have higher interest rates. Madam Speaker, the committee recommends that consistent with the financing requirements underpinned in the 2024 BPS, the proposed fiscal deficit target of 703.9 billion, that is 3.9% of GDP for the year 2024-2025, be approved. This is broadly in line with the proposed fiscal consolidation path progressing to 3.1% of GDP by the financial year 2027-2028. Number B, that the proposed borrowing strategy in the 2024 medium-term debt strategy of 55% for external borrowing and 45% for net domestic borrowing be approved for the financial year 2024-2025 and the medium term. Number C, going forward, the National Treasury should in subsequent budget cycles ensure that an MTDDS submitted to Parliament for consideration and approval contains the most recent data on the stock of public and publicly guaranteed debt as at the date of the statement, in line with Section 33, subsection 3 of the PFM Act. D, that to enhance monitoring and transparency on in-year borrowing operations, at the end of every quarter of the financial year, the National Treasury should submit to the Senate a status report on any deviation from the approved borrowing strategy, indicating the reasons for the deviation. Number E, that pursuant to Section 50 of the PFM Act, the National Treasury should submit a report to the Senate by the end of 30th April of 2024 on the specific measures being undertaken to ensure that the National Treasury complies with the 55% debt threshold within the timelines provided in the Act. Finally, Madam Speaker, I wish to thank the stakeholders who submitted written memoranda and who appeared before the committee to present their comments on the 2024 MTDS. I thank the officers of the Speaker and the Clerk of the Senate for the support extended to the committee in undertaking this important assignment. I also want to take this opportunity to commend the members of the committee for their devotion and commitment to duty, which made the consideration of the 2024 MTDS successful. Lastly, I want to request senators to approve the report of the committee on 2024 MTDS. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and I now request Senator Aaron Cheruiyot, the Majority Leader, to second this motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Cheruiyot.
Yeah?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to second this motion brought to us by our members of the Finance and Budget Committee, which is a report on the medium-term debt management strategy, otherwise known as MTD-MS, a very important policy document which unfortunately most of the time we don't give it the due consideration. Mr. Speaker, the biggest crisis that the country continues to face, and we have been in this space, fiscally speaking, Madam Speaker, for close to 5 years now, is a debt distress issue. Many of our policy decisions right now, Madam Speaker, are being informed one way or the other by the debt situation that we find ourselves as a country. And that is why, in its wisdom, Parliament, Madam Speaker, made it mandatory for the CS for Treasury to, on the 15th of every not on, but by the 15th of every financial year, Madam Speaker, to send this document to Parliament so as to provide a guide and a way through which Parliament can appraise itself of our debt obligations and the plan specifically of how we intend to unclog ourselves from this mess that we find ourselves in. I have observed, Madam Speaker, many times on the floor of this House, that this is a conversation which we will have for the next foreseeable future, and in my estimation, is going to be longer than the 5 years we projected when we passed the PFM amendment a few months ago, Madam Speaker, where we determined that the debt to GDP ratio needs to be at a sustainable level of 55% of our GDP, and that becomes the measure through which our debt sustainability is anchored. And we gave ourselves 5 years. Of course, this financial year, all the way to 2029, with a view to making it possible that by 2029, Madam Speaker, the debt to GDP ratio will be at 55%. Right now, it is at 68%, Madam Speaker. 13% is no mean feat. And if we carry on in the direction that I see this report proposing, Madam Speaker, unfortunately, the bad news that we need to deliver to the country is that we will not be able to turn this wheel around by 2029. The proposals that we are making in this report, Madam Speaker, are sound, and they are informed by good logic. And I want to congratulate our colleagues who serve in Budget and Finance for being thorough with this document. They have done an excellent job, Madam Speaker, though I believe that there are more stringent measures that we need to introduce, Madam Speaker, because the executive cannot save the house, the country rather, Madam Speaker, because they're under pressure. And I understand where they're coming from, because when they visit different parts of the country, speaker after the other, they'll request for this or the other road. They'll request for this or the other water project. They'll request for this or the other hospital to be furnished, and so on and so forth. Therefore, Madam Speaker, as a country, and I want to make mention of this because I appreciate Senator Faki has done a good job in elaborating all the recommendations that have been done by the committee. But in seconding, Madam Speaker, because I don't intend to be long, I'd wish to propose ways in which I think, as a country, we need to move and make it better. Madam Speaker, I hold the view, and I have said this to the National Assembly, its leadership. I have said the same, I can even go publicly about this, including to the President, that so long as we do not do a zero-based budget, Madam Speaker, and continue to do a program-based budgeting process, Madam Speaker, we will be in this debt distress situation for many, many years to come, Madam Speaker. There are many places that we continue to spend public
funds, Madam Speaker, areas that we don't need to. And I'm glad, Madam Speaker, that yesterday I listened to the President speak in Narok and mentioned actually something that I have been very passionate about, that there are many state corporations which we don't need to be funding, Madam Speaker. Some of them are obsolete, Madam Speaker, yet they continue to consume our taxes and we continue to borrow to keep them sustainable, Madam Speaker. It is inconceivable, Madam Speaker, for a country of a small economy such as Kenya, Madam Speaker, that we spend over 50 billion monthly just to run the operations of government. What is it that we are doing, Madam Speaker, with over 50 billion Kenya shillings, just to keep government afloat and running, paying operations here and there, per diems for people, Madam Speaker? We don't need 350 state corporations, Madam Speaker. I believe that number can be reduced to even less than 100, Madam Speaker. If we gave more responsibilities to many of our state corporations, Madam Speaker, and allowed them to do many other things other than ensuring that each of them have a board, they have a CEO, they have a company secretary, and they're all being paid by these taxpayers. Kenyans are overburdened, Madam Speaker. The reason why we find ourselves analyzing and looking into our debt situation, Madam Speaker, is because we continue to spend way above that which we are able to afford, Madam Speaker. And until, Madam Speaker, we come up with concrete policies such as what is being proposed, I've seen, Madam Speaker, that the committee has noted that in the BPS that was presented and passed by this House, Madam Speaker, there is a proposal to reduce the fiscal deficit, Madam Speaker, to 3.9% of the GDP by financial year 2024-2025. It's at all order, Madam Speaker. Yet I know that on this current financial year that we are in, and perhaps our colleagues who are in the budget and finance would have done us more justice, Madam Speaker, if they had guided us as a House and tell us how far off the fiscal deficit we are, even just on account of forex exchange, Madam Speaker, because it's a significant contributor. If you have a debt of $1 billion shillings by the time the dollar is 140, as was the case at the beginning of this financial year, Madam Speaker, and then moves upward to 160 and downwards, Madam Speaker, it messes up our fiscal deficit, Madam Speaker. And it is important that we are given the net present value of that particular deficit, Madam Speaker, because it's the one anchor point that points us as a nation to know, are we living within our means or above it, Madam Speaker. Therefore, I want to appreciate that the committee is making proposals on ways through which Parliament can actually keep tabs with the deviation from the fiscal deficit, so that the same way we proposed before the country, Madam Speaker, and urge that by 2028-2029 financial year, Madam Speaker, we will anchor our debt at 55% of the net external borrowing and domestic our debt to GDP ratio should be standing at 55%, Madam Speaker. Perhaps we need to propose further amendments to the PFM, Madam Speaker, so that we know anytime there's a deviation over and above the BPS anchor or indicator, Madam Speaker, on the fiscal deficit, then the Treasury and our colleagues, through our colleagues in the National Assembly, are forced to return and do a supplementary budget to cut down and reduce on programs. It's not as difficult as many people want to put it, Madam Speaker. It is common sense. It is what every Kenyan does. If you are working at a blue chip company and you lose your job, what every average Kenyan does is that they move and they downscale, Madam Speaker, their life expenditures, Madam Speaker. If you had a bigger car, 4x4, you reduce and buy a smaller one, or even use public means, Madam Speaker. If you're living in a place where you're paying rent, Madam Speaker, you move to places where you can afford. It's what every citizen does. And there's no rocket science that we are asking of government, Madam Speaker. This is what is meant by fiscal consolidation, Madam Speaker, that we want to move this nation, Madam Speaker, to this particular part. But we shall not achieve it, Madam Speaker, unless we become, as Parliament, we rise to the occasion, Madam Speaker, and ensure that we provide and make law. We can actually, Madam Speaker, propose so that anytime there's a deviation of the fiscal deficit beyond a certain percentage point, be it 0.5 at the very maximum, Madam Speaker, then it triggers Madam Speaker, the beginning of a supplementary process so that you downscale, Madam Speaker. I know it's not easy, but it must be done if we hope to recover as a country. Remember, Madam Speaker, that right now we can breathe a sigh of relief because Eurobond has been settled. The largest single bullet payment of $2 billion plus that we were thinking about the last few years, the last few months, Madam Speaker. And on account of it, there is a sigh of relief across the country. But who tells you that we cannot find ourselves in a situation where even to pay $1 billion, Madam Speaker, in one single swoop will be impossible? It's very possible, Madam Speaker, given the cash strained conditions that we find ourselves in as a country. Madam Speaker, therefore, while the National Treasury has demonstrated the willingness, while they have shown, Madam Speaker, to Parliament that indeed they are on a prudent path of fiscal consolidation, as the wise people say, the proof of the pudding, Madam Speaker, is in the eating. It is until they file the returns of this particular financial year and we see what has been the deviation from the projected 4.8% fiscal deficit for this current financial year, Madam Speaker, and the actuals of what will have been achieved, Madam Speaker, then we will know that indeed we are on the right trajectory, and by 2028, 2029, we will achieve this 55% that we all aspire to get to, Madam Speaker. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I'd wish to appreciate the good work that has been done by our colleagues in budget and finance. I do urge, like I have pointed out, that it is increasingly becoming clear, Madam Speaker, that so long as there are no deterrent measures, that there is no law stopping, Madam Speaker, certain habits and cultures that we have learned from colleagues in the National Assembly, us in the Senate, National Treasury, counties, so long as there are no legal deterrents, Madam Speaker, then there is no motivation for people to behave better. And therefore, on this question, much as we have handled, Madam Speaker, debt to GDP ratio as a percentage, Madam Speaker, there is something that we can surely do about fiscal deficit, Senator Faki, and keep it on track through amendments to the PFM, so that anytime there's a deviation over and above it, because remember, we have 5 years, Senator Faki, within which to determine whether we sink as a country or we rise and roar and achieve our full potential. This is the first year since we passed that amendment to the PFM. At the end of this financial year, on the 30th of June, we will take stock and measure as a House, and this is a duty which I believe if we all dedicate ourselves to, and I will be religious at it, Madam Speaker, in ensuring that we live true to our promise, because we don't pass laws for the sake of it, Madam Speaker. And I believe that at the end of this financial year shall give us an indicator how the next 4 will look like. In fact, you don't need to live up to 2029 to know whether we will achieve that 55% that we are aiming for. You just need to see what will have happened by the end of this current financial year. In the next 2 months, by the time we get to 30th of June, 2024, Madam Speaker, it will give you an indication of how the next 4 years will be. And it is my sincere hope that Senator Faki, Senator Eddy, and all our colleagues who are in Budget and Finance Committee shall be diligent enough and lead this House on a path of consolidation, so that because we have learned the tricks, that so long as the law isn't in black and white and providing the limitation of expenditure, then National Assembly will budget for it, Treasury will spend it, political pronouncements will be made. Then in another few months' time, Madam Speaker, we shall all be jittery and seated on our edge the same way we were in the month of December, as we are staring at a possible default of the Eurobond, as was the case a few months ago, Madam Speaker. With those very many remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to second and urge our colleagues to support these very good proposals and measures that have been proposed by our Budget and Finance Committee. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Cheriot. Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the 2024 medium-term debt management strategy laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 7th March 2024. Honorable Senators, we now have an opportunity for senators to contribute to this motion. And I'll first call upon Senator Edwin Sifuna Watenya.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was going through the very glossy Kenya Kwanza 2022 manifesto. Madam Speaker, one of the striking things that one gets from the very initial pages of that manifesto is that the Kenya Kwanza political coalition at that particular moment in time had properly diagnosed the problem with Kenya's debt. At least that's what they told us. And in fact, there is a paragraph that I wanted to borrow there. They said at the time of campaigns that the usual adage, the common adage that when you are in a hole, you should stop digging. That I have lifted word for word, Madam Speaker, from the glossy Kenya Kwanza manifesto for the last election. So the expectation was, and public pronouncements that followed the launch of that manifesto, was that we were going to see a stop in the borrowing that had been, had characterized the last regime, and that was the reason why we were in the hole that they said we were in. Madam Speaker, if you go to page 6 and 7 of the report of the Committee on Finance, they will tell you that in June 2023, Madam Speaker, the debt was at 10.2 trillion Kenya shillings. And by February of 2024, which is less than 8 months later, Madam Speaker, we were at 11.2 trillion. At that rate, in 8 months, our debt had ballooned by 1 trillion shillings. I have heard my majority leader also wax lyrical about the magic that was worked with the refinancing of the Eurobond. Madam Speaker, if you go to page 9 of the report of this committee, you will see reference there to the partial buyback of the Eurobond. But Madam Speaker, what the committee does not tell you is that we as a country in that buyback actually offered one of the highest interest rates, higher than any other country has done in Africa, Madam Speaker, at 10.37% for that Eurobond, for us to attract investors. And if you want comparisons, Madam Speaker, Cote d'Ivoire in January of this year offered or issued a Eurobond and their interest rate was 8.5%. Benin did the same in February at 7.5%, Madam Speaker. We have kicked the can down the road so that in 6 years' time, we will be paying investors the highest rate by any African state on a Eurobond. So it is not something to sing about, because the hole that we were told we were in and that this current regime promised to stop digging further is getting deeper and deeper. Madam Speaker, you will also see at page 8 of the report that the committee acknowledges that Kenya's public debt, although remaining sustainable, it still has a high risk of debt distress, which tells you that we shouldn't be celebrating anything as it is right now, because we are still under great risk of debt distress. Madam Speaker, let me conclude by making a few observations on some of the stakeholder submissions. But unfortunately, Madam Speaker, let me note that some of these submissions by key stakeholders to the committee did not find their way into the recommendations by the committee. And I don't understand why. Luckily for me, I'm seated next to one of the members of the committee. Senator Eddie will tell me why they ignored these important submissions from ISPAC. At page 21, Madam Speaker, paragraph 25, C, D, and E. I just want to read those recommendations, Madam Speaker, at page 21 of the report. No, do I have the right report, really? No, this is the right report. Sorry, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is what the Institute of Certified Public Accountants recommended that the committee must do. Number one, Madam Speaker, is that we need to prioritize projects independently assessed for financial viability and consider absorption capacity constraints within the investment timelines. We should also, they recommended, consider public-private partnerships as a form of financing development expenditure. Further, Madam Speaker, they recommended that we gradually retire expensive commercial loans for long-term concessional loans. And Madam Speaker, one of the recommendations that has actually been debated this afternoon when we were discussing another matter is that Parliament should demand regular reports on capital projects financed through debt from the National Treasury to enhance openness and transparency. The reports should include the corresponding feasibility studies, details of commitment fees, if any, and the project implementation status. Madam Speaker, this I think is coming from the perspective of what we saw in the last regime, that in fact money was borrowed, and the Auditor General himself told us that he could not trace a single project to which the money that was borrowed went to. Madam Speaker, we had the spectre of projects such as the Aurora and Kimwarel dams. So that, Madam Speaker, if we were in this position, Parliament should be demanding regular reports. We should be shown why was this money borrowed, which projects had been identified to be supported through those borrowed funds, the feasibility studies, the commitment fees that had been paid. Because you remember, Madam Speaker, there was a controversy at that time with the Aurora and Kimwarel dams as to what commitment fees had actually been paid. And it involved the person of the current president, when he was the then deputy president, telling the country that it was a mere 9 billion shillings, just a small figure, 7 billion. 7 billion shillings, he told us that had been lost. Madam Speaker, so that if we have those details as Parliament...
What is your point of order? Senator Gloria, resume your seat.
Madam Speaker, I stand on Standing Order 101 on contents of speech. Reference 1, neither the personal conduct of the President nor the conduct of the Speaker or any other judge. Madam Speaker, it is not in order that Senator Edwin Sifuna is referencing the President and in the manner with which he's doing. This is based on our standing order. If he can be able to articulate his points without having to drag either the name of the President or the Speaker or any of the persons that are mentioned under Standing Order 101 under content of speech.
Madam Speaker, should I respond before you make a decision?
Yes, you could respond. I'm
yes.
through this time.
Madam Speaker, in fact, I am not discussing the conduct of the head of state. It is a matter of historical fact that it was a pronouncement he made regarding the controversy surrounding the Aurora and Kimwarel dam project, and that in fact there was controversy at that particular point in time as to just how much money had been lost or alleged to be lost in that particular project. And the recommendation from ISPAC that I'm reading from the report, Madam Speaker, was that we should get the regular reports from government itself, including details of any commitment fees that has been paid. If this was being done, Madam Speaker, the point I was making was that there would be no room for such controversy. I am not discussing the character of the President. I know that under the standing orders, if I wanted to do that, I would bring a motion. It is something I am happy to do, because there is many questionable conduct that we have seen from the head of state and his government. But I have not brought a motion yet. Madam Speaker, please protect me, because you are the chair of this session. Yes.
Senator Sifuna, let me give a finding with respect to what Senator Gloria has raised. I have looked at Standing Order 101, the mode in which Senator Sifuna has brought out that issue has not as of yet discussed any conduct that could be adversarial to the person of the presidency. So you may proceed to debate, but avoid raising the issue of questionable issues unless you're willing to give a justification.
I thank you for that direction, Madam Speaker. You know, the head of state is a former SG of ODM. He has the skin to take this criticism. I don't know why people or some senators on this floor feel the need to be overprotective of the President. The President has a thick skin, just like all SGs of ODM do. Madam Speaker, let me conclude by saying that, in fact, I would have expected to see some of these recommendations.
Kenya Revenue Authority, KRA, reminds all business operators, including those who are not registered for VAT, to electrically generate and transmit their invoices through e-Teams. Log on to www.ecitizen.kra.go.ke to register today and start your invoice transactions before 31st March 2024. Kenyans are also encouraged to request for an electronically generated receipt with every purchase. Together, let's